Hello and welcome back to the GVP Game of the Year for 2021. This is part two. I'm your Adam Hart caster, Dylan Muss, and I'm joined by Dante yet again. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. Ready to talk about the heavy hitters of the year, man. This is exciting.
Yeah, so if anyone missed it, we did part one. This will be part two. So in part one, we talked about we quickly looked back at our list from last year and just kind of in retrospect how we feel about it. We talked about the games that we didn't get a chance to play this year that we would have liked to, and then we did some categories. We did best music, best visuals, best characters, and best levels, and that was a lot of fun. It ended up being a good 4-hour romp. So if anyone's jumping in here in part two thinking like, I don't know, part one's pretty long, I don't blame you, or I'll give you some time to go through it. I think it was a lot of fun, and the purpose of that was kind of, okay, let's not spend as much time talking about just directly honorable mentions, and we'll do it more in these fun categories. So also, like, let us know what you like about that, what you don't like about that, if you want to see other categories in the future. But
Sure.
a couple kind of housekeeping things. One, I forgot to let Dante, shout out his Twitter or Twitch, whatever he wants to do last time, because I'm just not doing this as much these days, so I forget things. So Dante, where can people find you if they want to see your opinions on games or music or the other thing? Mostly music, I feel like, on your Twitter is what I see.
I'm a big music person, so yeah, I don't. People in the video can see a lot of music things behind me as well. So like, yeah, that's definitely where I go to express my music feelings. But you guys have seen me before, so these aren't necessarily new. My Twitter changed, so it is Den, like the den of a house, acolyte, like religious, like Den Acolyte. So at Den Acolyte on Twitter, and then at Advent Oblivion on Twitch. In the days that I feel like it, it's few and far between these days. Been busy with real life, but I've been thinking about it a lot. So maybe you'll catch me over there soon too.
Nice. And yeah, maybe we'll play some games together online or something.
Yeah, so. for sure. Yeah, we should stream something. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Cool. And then the other thing I wanted to plug was that me and the rest of the GV squad, we are going to be doing a kind of looking ahead at the games coming out this year in 2022 and just talk about the big hitters, and then we're going to do like a little draft, I think, for what games we think are going to do the best and stuff like that. So I think that we're recording that this week as well. Actually, this episode will probably come out after that one has come out. But anyway, go check that out, because we're just going to be strictly talking about 2021 in this episode here. And I think that with that, we're ready to get into things. So
for sure.
Yeah, so let's start with I guess a quick overview. We're gonna do each of our top 10 lists, and then we're gonna do a collective 10 list as well. But let's start out with some honorable mentions. So, like I said, last episode we talked for almost 4 hours about a lot of games, and I think for me at least, most of the games I wanted to shout out or would have been honorable mentions, I talked about there, so I won't bring up again. I just have a couple that I didn't mention. But let's start with you. You can just go off as many as you have here. What are some of your honorable mentions from 2021?
So quickly, some honorable mentions that we did go over, but I'll just like shout them out real fast. Things that didn't make my top 10, but man, they were close. Man, were they close. So I have, wait a second. Ooh, I have less honorable mentions than I thought, because for some strange reason, my top 10 list only has 9 games on it.
Oh,
look at that. Yeah, we would have gotten into it, and I would have been like, oops, big oops. Man,
so one of those is getting brought over. Or did you forget to write something down?
Which one gets to sneak its way in?
Do you want me to give you a second and I can go over mine real quick?
Yeah, go over your honorable mentions while I just get my shit together over here.
Okay. So yeah, I talked about pretty much everything last week. The 2 games that I didn't mention at all, 2 Nintendo games, Mario Golf Super Rush and Mario Party Superstars. I've had a lot of fun with both of these games this year. I think, I don't know, maybe it's indicative of something that they didn't show up in any of the categories. I do think Mario Party actually is like one of the best looking Switch games. It is really good looking, and it's just fun, best of Mario collection. And I think they actually put a lot of love into it, where sometimes Nintendo really half-asses things, but I think they did a good job with Mario Party. And then Mario Golf, I really came close to actually putting it at number 10 on my list. I love Mario Golf. I haven't played any of the ones in the past, but yeah, me and my girlfriend have just had so much fun with this, and like every month or two they've added new maps like throughout since it came out in June. So we just keep coming back. It's one I'll keep playing. I really, really love it, even though it's like the animations are so bad. The textures are really like it seems like a very lazy effort from Nintendo,
Oh
but I still
no.
just like had so much fun playing it.
Yeah.
So definitely shout out to those two games for me. Those would be my two kind of honorable mentions. And yeah, Mario Part or Mario Golf, really close to sneaking in at 10, but didn't quite do it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Mario Party seemed like just the culmination of all of the best Mario Party stuff in the past. So of course that had to be a banger, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then Mario Golf looked like a lot of fun. I actually wish I had some time to jump into that with a few buds.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this year. Maybe this year. All right. So we mentioned Back for Blood, Resident Evil 8, and Death's Door. Spoilers. Those are not going to be in my top 10. Sad to
Okay.
say. Fantastic video games, however. The main one that I did not talk about at all last week that I think is just super sick, and if you guys have the opportunity to play it, it's a blast. Splitgate.
Splitgate. Okay.
Splitgate is Halo, maybe more speedy than Halo. So let's say like Unreal Tournament with portals, like Portal ass, like the Valve video game Portal
Yeah.
portals. So you have a left click and a right click. It creates two portals, and you can just do some absolutely wacky stuff in that game. It becomes, I don't know, like one of the craziest competitive shooters I've ever played. Like people end up having some just absolutely wild meta in that game that is just super fun to figure out. So that is one that was on my top 10 list for a while, and then it got bumped off because I started playing real Halo.
There you go. No, that game does look like a lot of fun.
It's
I'd like
super
to try
fun.
it at some point.
Yeah, definitely. If you're in the mood, I will definitely shepherd you through some
Nice.
Splitgate. That game is
Okay.
sick and deserves some love for sure.
I'll let you know.
Nice.
Is that any other honorable mentions?
That's it. Those
Cool.
are them.
All right, let's get into these top 10s. We're going to alternate counting down from 10, of course. That's the way to do it. Dante, how about you go? How about you go first? Again, I have your list above mine on the screen. And once again, yeah. So if anyone's listening on Spotify, iTunes, whatever, if you want to hop over to YouTube, I will have everything pulled up on screen so you can follow along with us there if you wish.
Cool. Yeah. So the one that just got it added to number 10 in this last second, one that I thought was going to be my honorable mentions, but I'm actually glad to see that it made its way on because it was frustrating to knock this off initially also. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
All right.
Just stunning, like absolutely gorgeous. If you are a Ratchet and Clank fan, it is a must. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Ratchet and Clank game ever. I think it is pretty tried and true. And for that reason, I feel like it does maybe fall behind like Going Commando, which was trying a lot of new things. You know what I mean? Like some of the older ones that were really, really pushing their own limits and they were getting really creative. Here feels like a pretty standard Ratchet and Clank game, but it's like just done perfectly. They even mentioned that throughout the game, like how do we do it again? Like they actually like kind of break the fourth wall a few times, and they're just like, we want to bring Ratchet and Clank back, but we want to make sure that we're doing it justice. You know what I mean? Like, and I think they did that. It is one of the prettiest games on a PlayStation 5. If you have a PlayStation 5, it will absolutely showcase how gorgeous that system is. Like, straight up just looks like a Pixar game throughout. Moves at a buttery 60 all the time. Like, it is just it's a pleasure to just be in. Nice short, sweet game though. Like, I felt like I knocked it out in sub 15 hours, I'd say, something like that. So it was just like I don't know, just a really enjoyable time with my two besties that I've been hanging out with my whole life. I've been playing Ratchet and Clank since I was like 8 or something like that. Yeah, and for the fact that they can still bring it when I'm 30 is pretty impressive. I absolutely loved it, and yeah, while it's not necessarily breaking the mold, they did a kick-ass job at bringing Ratchet and Clank into the new age. Yeah,
dude,
awesome.
Insomniac is just like
they're
on another level right now.
Yeah,
like Miles
absolutely.
Morales at the end of last year, this game, and then even announcing like Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine this year. Like, what the hell? They are on a roll right now. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, they must be a 2 studio team or two development team studio. That's the right way to put it. Yeah, so I'm assuming they have to be like working on 2 games consecutively at all times, and then migrating people when something gets close to done, because the polish on this stuff is also on another level. Like,
yeah,
to be able to pump out games at this scale at that clip is wild. It's wild.
Mhm.
They're in the top tier of developers at the moment as far as
Yeah.
AAA goes for me.
And even like, yeah, they're kind of being the first ones to pad out the groundwork for PS5 and the limit,
Absolutely.
like what the new console can do is, yeah, super impressive. Like having a game at launch and then another one, like what, 7 or 8 months later. Wild.
Seriously.
Wild.
Yeah, like this is I think this is PS5 exclusive where Miles was
It was on both,
both.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is the first time that they've actually like fully utilized the PS5. And, like I spoke about it a little bit in our previous segment, but the weapon design, doing all types of cool stuff, like the voxel gun particularly is just like
Yeah.
the most fun for me because it really does show how strong that system can be. Like the fact that there's hundreds of pixels, it looks like just exploding and just being all over the ground, and there's tons of nuts and bolts everywhere. It just looks like there is a million things on screen at any one time, and like once again staying at like a buttery smooth 60.
Yeah.
It was a blast. It was a blast. It looked incredible. Like I honestly could just leave that game on as a screensaver and be a happy camper, let alone
Amazing.
it plays fun.
Yeah, man, you're selling me. I feel like when I do finally get that PS5, like maybe I
Find
went for a
one.
sale or something, but like it sounds like I gotta at least check it out just for the like new console vibes.
Yeah, it's I've been playing my PS5 a lot actually. Like I usually worry that like I get a new system and then I don't touch it for the first 2.5 years or something like that. Like it's been my main console. So I'm happy with my purchase so far. If you can find one, it's worth it.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's still pretty tough to get your hands on a PS5 these days.
Yeah, it is. Let's go into my number 10 and another thing I forgot. So, we've been playing these games forever. We could dance around spoilers, but I think I just want to open up the floodgate personally. I just want to have nothing held back. I don't want to have to say like, okay, this game I'll talk spoilers, or like this part I want to talk like 100% spoiler open. Dante, feel free to spoil anything you want. You were nice and cautious there with Ratchet, but I don't know if you would really how much you'd really spoil.
There's no spoilers for Ratchet. Yeah. Nefarious
it's also difficult.
Is back.
Like some people will consider like the name of a level to be a spoiler. Like anything could be a spoiler to someone, but I just want to go completely open here. And there might be a couple games we don't really spoil that much, and I think for like maybe a couple like really specific story ones, maybe I'll say like you could listen to this, but please go play the game first. But let's just keep it open. We've played these games so much. We want to talk about them. So, be careful if you're really cautious of spoilers for some of these games that we are not going to hold anything back.
Right. I'll mention before I jump into my personal ones, just like, hey, I'm about to get into it.
Yeah.
That way.
All right. My next game is a game we talked a lot about last week. And yeah, like I said, it was very much on the border, but I am happy to put it here. And that is Resident Evil Village.
Fantastic.
I think I'm pleasantly surprised that this ends up on my list because I'm just not really a big Resident Evil guy. Like my history with the series is that the first one I played was 5, and I loved that game like on the 360 because it was just a fun action co-op game.
Oh yeah, it is. So different from a regular Resident Evil though. On top of that,
I know,
as well.
like that's
so
everyone's
not
like
surprising actually that you liked 8 a bunch because 8 is also a more actiony Resident Evil, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I it's not that I even liked Resident Evil 5 for it being a Resident Evil game. It was just like I was at that age where just co-op action shooters were my vibe, and so it was like and it's not surprising too because that's like the best-selling one I think by like a few million copies. Yeah, wait, surprisingly,
4. It has to be 4.
I think it's 5. I think it's 5. Wow. You look it up.
4 has come out. 4 has just been out on every like console imaginable. That's the only reason I
guess maybe if you throw some different versions in there, but either way, really popular game, so maybe not too surprised that like that's the one that I happened to play. And then I tried 7 and it was too scary. I talked about this last week. And then 8, I like found my niche for it, and it's like playing the game on the easiest difficulty, having a guide up the whole time, and that ended up being the way for me to play it because I cruised through it like a nice like maybe 8 to 10 hours somewhere in there, and I loved pretty much every second of it. Like I love exploring these levels. The visual fidelity is there, but even just like the way these levels unfold is really interesting to me. The different zones are all very unique. The character designs, and I like the cheesiness of it. I like how weird the story gets and how unpredictable it gets. And the action parts of it, it's weird because the game, I played it on Xbox, so I was playing with a controller, and I think the game, like no matter what I did with the settings, it always felt a bit clunky. but I
Mm.
think that's one of those things as well that's like intentional. Like the controls are supposed to feel a bit sloppy. That makes it so that you can't just easily headshot all the enemies and then
Yeah.
move on with your day. And that part worked for me. Normally, like game feels like so important to me, and like having this game that feels a bit wonky might in theory go against like what I'm all for in games, but it really worked for me here. And yeah, I don't think I have too many negatives. Like I think you could mount some negatives against the story, but I just liked how strange it was and some of
Yeah.
the twists. And yeah, I really loved this game. I loved every area of it in some way. And I'm in now. Like whatever the next one is, I think there's DLC coming for this game. Like I'm definitely going to be picking that up, and I'm excited to kind of like be along for the ride with the rest of the series now. And I also like Resident Evil 4 has always been on my backlog, and I think even more than ever now, it's like higher on my backlog.
It's still after playing. I've beaten every Resident Evil game, right? So like even the remasters, I think I've beaten four like 4 or 5 times now.
Nice. Yeah.
Definitely make time for four. Four is still to me the best Resident Evil game. I got mad love for seven though, man. Like I do like a good jump scare. I would like to be spooked a little bit. So that's the only reason that I think Resident Evil ended up on my honorable mentions, or 8 ended up on my honorable mentions, is because like while I loved what I was playing of 8 or Village, and sadly I still did not finish it. I got to get to the end of this game. Like I'm right there. I think the only thing that was a negative for me is that it was less scary, more actiony, and I was enjoying how frightened I was. I was like, man, a Resident Evil game hasn't scared me in ages, and this one actually is like getting under my skin.
Right. Yeah, I like obviously it was super actiony with a lot of set pieces, but I think since I was on the easiest difficulty, like there wasn't really any combat challenges. I don't think I ever had to load a save based on dying, just because easiest difficulty, like you get a lot of ammo and the enemies are not that hard. But still some of the boss fights were still fun to play through. I won't like particularly maybe one like at the very end. I think the last boss fight for me was really cool, and so I won't talk about that because you haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, like I like the different combat struggles, and like there's one part where you're fighting just like this giant guy with a hammer, and like I love how I love how tight knit that zone is, and it felt really frantic.
You're just kiting him around. Yeah, I think I'm playing that game on hard. I think it is one of the easier Resident Evils too, because I don't think I've had a game over either, and I'm not some like pro gamer. I just like, I don't know. Every once in a while, like a challenge, like, oh, I'll see a game over screen a few times. I don't mind. I don't think I've died in that game.
Nice.
So
well, you're the Resident Evil god apparently. So
no, I don't think so. That's the thing. I played a lot of Resident Evil. That's fair. I've gone through my paces, but like I think this might be one of the easier Resident Evil games.
Okay, I think maybe the last thing I'll say too is that even though I'm not super well involved with like the story, the backstory of the world and stuff, I still found myself reading like every note in this game just because I found it so interesting, and particularly the character backstory stuff. I just wanted to hear like how they became who they are, and like their thoughts even sometimes as they were turning more into like these evil creatures, and like even just the lore of the village itself. And this kind of early on in the game, you get to interact with some of the villagers, and in this kind of I like that escape sequence in the house early on, and I think that scene had just a lot of tension to it. I like the characters and the writing there, and we talked about this last week, but I like Ethan. I like how weird he is. I like how over top he is. I love his super cheesy one-liners.
Oh, he is so wacky,
and I like playing as the character. So yeah, I was super into it.
They do a good job of making him feel like an action hero, like an unsuspecting action hero. And I think they do a good job of making it feel like a pretty self-contained thing. Like it's clearly a sequel of 7, and like Ethan, you're following Ethan's story, but like outside of the first hour, I'd say the main story feels contained within Village. So like honestly, if you look at a like 20-minute YouTube video, you can catch up for 8 no problem.
Yeah, and I like that they even have that at the beginning of this game. I thought that was
I didn't even remember that. Yeah, then
you might have just skipped it because you know everything, but I'm like, I didn't finish 7, so I need this recap. And in maybe 3 or 4 minutes, it quickly zips through the main stuff of like the main plot stuff you need from 7, and I thought that was great. I think more games need that because because if the game has an 8 in the title, it's like it is inherently more daunting, and I'm not always going to go back and catch up on everything.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of that.
Mm-hmm.
A worthy number 10, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like actually a miss that I didn't finish it. Yeah, I'm like really excited to finish it now. Maybe we'll talk again next year and I'll be like, yeah, Resident Evil 8 should have been on
Yeah,
there.
well, like I said, there's DLC. I assume that's coming out next year, so maybe we'll talk about it more if that's pretty good. But yeah, moving on to number 9. What do you got for us?
Number 9, Guilty Gear Strive. We talked about this a little bit last week as well. I'm a big Guilty Gear fan. I'm a big fighting game fan in general. So, like, honestly, if there's a high-profile fighting game coming out that year, you're bound to see it show up somewhere in a top 10 list for me. Guilty Gear Strive is just some of Arc System Works best. Like, visually, it is the best-looking fighting game I've ever seen in motion ever. The netcode is phenomenal. I think that's been Arc System Works' downfall for a long time. It has rollback netcode, so like even I've been playing against people in like Japan and it's been like pretty damn smooth, like, which is unheard of earlier. Like, you used to be like, yeah, I can only fight against people on, like, I'm on the East Coast, so I would only fight against people on the East Coast to make sure that like I actually got a consistent frame rate. But like, no, this works perfectly. The characters, the cool thing about Guilty Gear is like every single character feels like they're playing their own fighting game, which is super fun. Like, they all have different meters and different like I don't know, like different inputs. Like Gold Lewis, who is this hilarious giant man who holds a coffin that he swings around, is the only character I've ever played in a fighting game that, like, in any circle motion, he has a different attack depending on where you land in that circle. So if you do like a 270, it's a different attack. If you do like a 90, it's a different attack. So he has a crazy amount of variation just based on how much you're spinning the stick, which is pretty hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you have your charge characters, you have your Shoto characters, fighting game terms. Sorry if you're like, for anyone unfamiliar. But regardless, Guilty Gear has just done an excellent job of continuing to do what Guilty Gear does great. Like, Xrd and Xrd Revelator were fantastic pushes forward for the Guilty Gear franchise, and Strive just takes that to the next level. Yeah, the characters are awesome. The story mode is pretty cool in the Guilty Gear series. A lot of people go in expecting to go and play through a long story mode, but it's actually like a popcorn flick. Like, you literally just watch the story because the meat and potatoes of that game is fighting. So they're like, all right, well, like, get invested in these characters, watch your like Arc System Works anime in between, and then just get into a lobby and start kicking some ass. The training mode is probably the best I've seen in a fighting game as well. I think it does a really, really good job of helping people who are unfamiliar with fighting games get familiar with fighting game mechanics. Maybe. I say that because it is definitely the best training mode I've seen, but like, I've been playing fighting games my whole life, so like, it might look easier to me or like a better onboarding experience to me, but like, if you put like somebody who's never touched a fighting game in front of it, they might still look at it like, what? So I'm
how do I use this?
Yeah, I'm expecting it is a better option for new fighting game players as well. The only knock I will give this game, and I think it's something that they've been very aware of and will start fixing, hopefully, is their lobby system is pretty crap. They have Arc System Works has always done this thing where they want it to feel like you're in a real arcade. So they put all these like arcade machines in a room, and you get your little character sprite and you move around the room and move to arcades and like essentially like put your coin on the machine to let people know that you want to play. But it just doesn't work very well. Like, I honestly just want to go into a menu and click like, give me a game.
That should
play.
Be optional. Like, that's like a fun gimmick at first, but after a while it's like, when you're 1,000 games in, it's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. So they've done, I was gonna say they've strived to, but no, no, that's terrible. They've done a lot of work to fix it already. I think
you could say they're guilty of making like a bad
oh gosh. Yeah, so exactly. They have done work already to improve that system, and I'm pretty sure they're going to continue to improve it. Something that is very common in fighting games is you will have your first pass, and then they will do their like anniversary edition, which will have like everything you actually wanted in that game.
Yeah.
So Guilty Gear Strive, amazing right this second. I believe they will probably do some sort of anniversary edition in the next 6 months to a year. Anniversary means a year, so I'm assuming in a year.
Right.
And it'll be like completely buttoned up. But as it is right now, it's already phenomenal. So I can't wait to see what that next pass is as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'll check it out someday.
Oh, it's super fun. Super fun. Get you some May action. I know your last time you were saying that you wanted to play May. She is frightening. She is the scariest character to play against. She literally just throws dolphins at you, and then anytime you get close, she just beats you in the face with the anchor. It is
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's terrifying and adorable. So yeah, definitely get into that.
All right. Number 9 for me is also a game we talked about, not tons last week, but we talked about last week. And that is Metroid Dread.
Yes.
I will say as well, like I kind of think of my lists in like tiers. And so I'd say like 7, 8, 9 for me are kind of in the same tier where like I can make a case for Metroid up to 7, but I'm pretty happy with my list as it stands right now. So yeah, Metroid Dread at number 9. I think this is a game that like right after I finished it, I was super hot on it, and it was like in my top 5. And it's not necessarily that I played games that were just like, oh, that's way better than Metroid, but I feel like it's just dropped a few points down. I mean, 9 is still respectable. I played so many games this year, and I think it's just because it's not really anything new or innovative. It's just a really solid job of a formula and like a game genre that is just so overpresent these days. And so I think for that reason, I really enjoyed it because it's just a super strong entry. I think it's a good runtime. Some really great boss fights. Like I love playing against Kraid. I think that was a great boss fight. And then Experiment. I forget what the number is. Experiment something or other. That boss fight was really fun. And then the final boss obviously is super, super difficult, but like feels so good when you get it. And just learning that fight, the ins and out of it. And that you kind of have to do that for most of the fights. It took me multiple tries for all of them. But like that last fight, oh man, when I finally crushed
it,
it feels
it's so good. Like it no wonder it had like some strong recency bias for you, because I think that final boss sets such a good such a good stage. It really does make you utilize every single tool that you have been given throughout that game. And like the fact that you're having to space jump around his attacks in like a very, very particular pattern, like stressed me the hell out. But it was just like, I don't know, it reminded me of all of my favorite boss fights from any sort of like side-scrolling action game. It was just like incredibly tight, made you use all of your resources, and then still at the end of it, your ass was just clenched, hoping that you could get through it. And then you eventually do, hopefully.
I like that you brought up that you kind of have to use all of the tools you've learned at that point, because it's pretty true. Like you can skip a couple of them, but I think it was even cool. I was watching one of my friends stream the game after I'd beaten it, and like he was doing just some different techniques than I was in for certain phases, and I thought that's so cool. Like I feel like replayability here, or ways that you could optimize the fight. What else? I think the different areas all really work. I liked it so much that I went back for 100% completion, and there's some really cool like environmental puzzles to get certain upgrades that involve like using your speed boost in certain ways, and then like refreshing it on like little tiny ledges.
Yeah, what was that called? What's that called? The Shatter Spark or whatever it's called?
I don't remember anymore. I feel like it's all so generic. I can't remember the names of them, but yeah, there's some great puzzle design in these levels once you have everything, and it makes it super satisfying to go back and get through these things, get all these bonuses at the very end.
Yeah, some of the boss fights like make you do things that you didn't think were going to be required of you with those tools. Like the Experiment, for example, there's a period where it's like pushing you up against a flame wall, and it's shooting little fireballs at you, and there's like a gap within the tiers of the fireball, and you have to like spin jump through them, and it almost starts to feel like Flappy Bird.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I know what you mean,
like you're like just trying to stay in the air and avoid these things, and it's just like this one's a jump, this one's a double jump, this one's a single jump, this one, like, and it really does like lay the pressure on. But then there's like awesome stuff with the parry mechanic. Like I didn't realize that like specifically that boss, once again, you can parry at certain points in that fight and remove sections of the fight
right
completely. Like so there's like a whole speed run mechanic in this game too, where you're like literally cutting off phases of fights by parrying at
Yeah, I
points.
remember seeing that for Kraid. Like, there's a way you can
Yeah,
skip one of his phases completely,
right.
which is cool.
Um, yeah, dude, Metroid Dread's so good.
Yeah, I think so. To comment on like the Emmy boss fights, I think it was really good at first, and the first few worked for me. And maybe the last couple didn't so
Hmm.
much.
Yep.
But I think it was a cool idea. I think it was a fun inclusion, and it added like a different type of mini boss to the game that
Nice
I
stress that the
enjoyed
game doesn't
seeing.
have otherwise, I'd
Yeah,
say.
I think so. Like I even like the effect that it has
Dread,
on the
if you will.
screen when it's happening. I think maybe one thing is like maybe the designs they could have gone for like kind of unique designs or 1-to-1 rather than just like
Different
palette
colors.
swap them to like
Yeah,
yellow and purple. I mean, I like that
that's
the
true.
colors are associated with the ability that they have. I think that's cool, but I think maybe that's something that like if they next time they make another 2D Metroid, which who knows, it could be another 15 years. I'd
I
like to
hope
see them
not.
take an
I hope
idea like
not.
that and evolve it in a way like off of this great foundation.
So, like, I think this is the best selling Metroid game ever
I think so.
now.
Yeah.
And within I guess the month since its release, it's done the best that a game has done in that
Mm-hmm.
period of time. And this is only Mercury Steam's second Metroid
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yeah.
So they did Samus Returns on the 3DS, I think, which
Yep.
like no one touched.
Yeah, that one I
This is
played for I think 3 or 4 hours and then kind
yeah,
of dipped out. So I didn't even
It's a
know. It's hard
remake
for me
of
to remember
the Game
why I
Boy
didn't
game.
like it. But what's that? Sorry?
Yeah, it's a remake of the original Game Boy game. So
Right.
like
Right.
even like the things you might not have liked are things that might be just
Just
dated
old.
from
Yeah.
yeah. So if this is an example of what Mercury Steam can do with a Metroid game, I think we're going to start seeing some more 2D Metroids. Like I hope so. Like honestly, they could take this and do what they did with like Fusion and stuff like that and just kind of like make a new one every other year
Hmm.
for a little while until like people get a little bored with it. Like they can use all of these exact same assets and just keep
I'd be
doing
down
it.
for
And
that.
I'd be down for it for probably 2 more iterations.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Not
mean,
to
well,
sequelize everything, but
we're
like
going back
this
to
is a very
Prime.
good Metroid.
We're going back to Prime for a few years, so I don't know if that's like high
Yeah.
on their radar. But if they have different teams working on it, like why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they also said this is the end of the story, but I mean, I don't think that ever really means a whole lot,
No.
especially because you
It's the
go
end
to
of
some
this
interesting
story.
places at the end of this
Oh
game
yeah.
too. I really like that ending, and I mean, I'm not a
Me
huge
too.
Metroid lore guy, but I really like the escape sequence. I think it's always fun, but
Mhm.
especially as the super powered
This one
Metroid
is
Samus is
very
really. I
cool.
love that. I was hoping you could do like New Game Plus with that costume because I love the look of it.
Oh
so
my
much.
god. Okay, so since we are getting into spoilers,
Yeah.
that moment with the final boss when you are literally the Metroid Samus and you are just charging up that
Mm-hmm.
crazy beam and you let go and you are literally doing world's best Kamehameha wave ever.
Yeah.
It is such a satisfying moment. And oh, that is something that I think Metroid does that I hope that a lot of people live from. These cinematic cutscenes that they throw at you throughout boss fights, the fact that they actually give you things to do within those that don't just feel like quick time events.
Mm-hmm.
Like they actually feel like impactful moments where you don't want to take your hands off the controller and like many fights there'll be something attacking you in the fight and it's like parry it or shoot your rocket a bunch of times and like you
Mm-hmm.
actually do have and it makes an effect on the fight as a whole. I think that's smart as hell.
Yeah.
So many moments in the beginning of that game I was like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be doing something.
Yeah. I think they did a good job of like teaching that early on too. And
Yeah.
even just against like normal enemies where you can like learn to just parry some of the easy ones like every single time is great. Because I think I ever got one against the enemies. Like that timing was not happening.
It
for
was
me.
really tight. I tried it every single time, and I do think that it was different, which is annoying. Like it's like if it was just tight timing and it was the same every time, I think I could nail it. But like it was one of those ones where it was like this window's 3 pixels, and this
Mm-hmm.
this one is like I don't or 3 frames, and this one is
Yeah.
like 20 frames. Like it switched it up way too much for it to be consistent at all, which is frustrating, but I get it also. They're supposed to be
Yeah, I
scary.
think you weren't like supposed to do it. It's more like a miracle happened, and for me, it was like it happened once, and I think that maybe that's like exactly what they were going for.
Right.
Um, we've kind of touched on this, but yeah, I think the animations, just like the little things of, I think people have pointed this out. If you go like near a one thing gap on in the wall, like Sam's will put her arm up as she looks through, and just little
Yeah.
things like that. I think the movement, like the double jump, took me some getting used to. It's kind of weird at first, but once you're kind of comfortable with everything, like just moving around the world feels great.
That's a common complaint that I have with Metroid in general, though. That jump it's the same as that jump is always felt,
Yeah.
which is
Just
always
it's
felt
not the same
strange.
as other games.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
it's
exactly. It's
very
like they're
strange.
trying to maintain a feel from Super Metroid, which is something that has been improved upon a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it works for that as well. Like
Yeah.
it does feel nostalgic for the right reasons.
Yeah, what else is there to say? I think they have some cool challenges at the end, like based on completion and time beaten. I think I want to go back and try and like do the 4 hour challenge of
Me
beating the
too.
game. I kind of me and a friend split on the game, so after I beat it, I lent it to her. So I haven't had the chance to do that, but I think that's something I would do is try and go back and get the 4 hour challenge. And I like that they have that in there. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I have to say. But I really enjoyed Metroid Dread and as a like I've played just a couple of the Metroid games and I think this is probably my. I mean, I really like Zero Mission, but I think this might be my new favorite of the series. So I'm
Fusion
excited to
was
jump
mine.
into Prime when that comes out.
Fusion was mine, and I have to agree. Like, I think this might be an improvement
Nice.
on Fusion, which has like been my favorite forever.
Yeah.
Um,
Better music in the next one. Like give
yeah,
us some better music. But other than that, I don't know. I don't think I have many complaints. So great job, Mercury Steam.
right. Absolutely. Yeah, they crushed it. They crushed it. I have one complaint, and
Ooh,
I have a good opportunity to talk about it, I think, because can we just jump into my number 8?
please.
It's Metroid Dread.
Hey, nice. Good timing. Good timing.
Right? I was like, we can talk about this one for a while. I can just get my thoughts out of the way here,
Yeah.
too. So I have one complaint with that game, and it has to do with completion, right? Like I want to get as much as possible done. That game moves you from area to area. Like, very, like, it feels like you're going to have opportunities to go back into these areas, and you do, but like it doesn't work with the story as well, and it's kind of always pushing you towards an elevator, right? It's like, get to the elevator, get to the elevator, and the second I get to an elevator, I was like, all right, well, I'll be coming back here later for something, and like some of the areas you really don't go back to. So
until like the very end, and then
yeah,
exactly,
exactly,
like right before
exactly.
the final boss. Yeah.
So I wish that was a little more clear. At least that it was gonna be a place that's like, hey, you're not gonna have a lot of reasons to come back here, so do your digging now. Or but then again, like there was stuff that like you wouldn't have been able to get unless you had the Shatter Spark, which you don't get until like you get the Speed Dash, which is like in the third area or something like that. So I like that was the only piece I think in previous Metroid games I felt like I was encouraged to explore, and this one felt like it was moving me through the plot a lot more than previous games. But it also had a little bit more plot than the previous games, I think. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. Yeah. I do think they do a really, really good job with the with how they offer you and at the clip that they offer you new powers. Metroid, getting Metroided is like a term in video games where like they take all of your powers away, right? Yeah. And they don't do nearly as much of that in this game. Samus feels pretty powerful, like right off the bat, and like the things that she loses aren't super impactful to the way that you're playing the game. So like she gets everything super fast, it feels like, and the only times that you feel like, man, I'm underpowered is like when you're stuck in the water and you don't have gravity boots yet, and stuff like that, like, or the gravity suit yet. Like those are the only times you feel like really underpowered throughout this game, which I think is pretty cool too. I said this in our previous segment. They characterized Samus much better than they ever have. Like she feels like a badass, and she expresses herself like a badass. That Kraid fight, like I said once again in a previous segment, she's charging her beam up the second she sees him. She's like, I'm over this dude. Yeah, I'm over this dude. And it's such a badass moment. But then with the final boss, like she's terrified of him, and then like in the moment when she's converting to that like Metroid version of Samus, she seems scared of what's happening to her, but knows that it's a requirement to survive at the end of the day. Yeah, they personalize Samus in a way that I didn't expect, and you finally hear her talk, which is super, super, super cool, because like you expect her to, you get this like girly voice or something like that, and she's just speaking completely different language. Yeah, she's speaking Chozo or something like that, which is like, I don't know, it's cool. Like, what would you have expected? She got raised by them, you know what I mean? Like, it made me more interested in Metroid lore than I've ever been. So like they did such a good job of expanding on the lore that it even made me want to go back and be like, what is all of this stuff that I missed previously? Like, what were they at least trying? What story were they trying to tell with Samus outside of that like blurb of text you get in the beginning of each game?
Yeah.
It's cool. They really knocked it out of the park for me. I couldn't have imagined a 2D Metroid coming back out again and doing much for me. It felt like it had been decades.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the last one that I cared about was Fusion. So
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, one point off what you said, I liked how I feel like the progression is it's interesting because at the start it feels like you're not getting a whole lot. Like this, it takes a long time to get the morph ball in this game, but then after that point, like things come really quickly. But I like that they kind of wait like maybe a couple hours in there before they even give you the morph ball, so you get really familiar with the parry and just like the basics of movement and shooting and all that stuff. So you just get like the basic controls down.
Right.
And then once like you've kind of got that iron down, you've done a boss fight or two, then it's like here's the morph ball, and then like everything else you're gonna get something every half an hour until the very end. And really really good pacing there, I think. And even like you mentioned how you can't backtrack as much. I think I agree with you. I feel like I think they did a good job of guiding you in certain ways without putting like a quest marker that's like pinging all the time, telling you exactly where to go. I think they did a good job of that. But for people who do want to backtrack, like, yeah, I think they it seems like they kind of gate that off a bit more than they need to. But at the same time, I've jumped off so many Metroidvanias because I got stuck somewhere, didn't know what to go, and this game I didn't have that issue at all. And so
that's true.
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword in that case.
My favorite Metroidvania ever, that's like everyone's number one frustration, it's Hollow Knight. And like that game map system is frustrating for a lot of people. It makes you backtrack constantly, and there's still times I've beaten that game 3 times and I still get lost playing that game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they do a good job of like, hey, like you're gonna get to the end of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas Hollow Knight's like, I'm here to disrespect you.
Any other Metroid Dread points?
Man, I don't know. The suits are kick-ass looking, right? All of them excellent. Like once again, I agree with you. I wish you could like just use some of them as skins in the next playthrough. Like I wish there was like some new game plus options, but overall, it's like it's so good. I'm nitpicking at this point.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so my next game is one I don't think I'll say too much about it, but it is Before Your Eyes. Before Your Eyes. I guess if you didn't listen to our 4-hour discussion from a few days ago, a quick recap. So this game is the game where you control it with you have a mouse as well that you have to look around with, but you use your webcam that records your blinks to progress the story. And the idea is that you're reliving a character's life, between before a flash before your eyes kind of thing. And it's a really great story. I don't want to spoil this one because Dante specifically is going to play it.
I really am excited about playing this.
But yeah, so I don't think I need to say much. It's a really impactful story. It really worked for me. It's an interesting method of controlling the game, and it's not gimmicky. It's used really well. At least for me, it worked really well. And yeah, definitely very creative. I like the art style. I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but a good example of one flawed character in particular in this game that really stood out to me and just very humanizing, and then just some other fun characters on the side of that. Good voice acting, all that stuff. I love this game. I'm very happy to put it in my top 10, and I just can't wait to see what the studio does next, because whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be something really creative as well. So definitely on my radar for the future.
Yeah, that game looks super cool, and we talked about it a little bit last time. It seems like a tearjerker, like the fact that you have to strain to keep those moments alive, keep your eyes open for as long as possible, so you can spend time with whatever bright, cheery moment, and then like blinking super hard through any traumatic moments. For it's only like an hour, right?
I think it took me hour 20, just under an hour 20.
Yeah, I think that needs to be something that I squeeze into a night when I'm looking for a little tearjerker. Want to get in the feels.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems good. It seems good for sure.
But yeah, that's all I'll say for now. It's so short. I don't think I need to spoil the story twist to get across how moving the game is. But let's move on to your number 7.
Number 7, Shin Megami Tensei 5. I have not beaten this game yet. This is the only game on my top 10 list that I have not beaten, which is frustrating for me because a bit of a completionist, but like this is a big JRPG, so like you got to cut me a little slack here.
Yeah.
So Shin Megami Tensei 5 is the latest iteration of a game or series that's been running since the 89, 90, something like that. Like there's been a lot of these over the years, and a lot of people are familiar with the spin-off franchise, which has gotten much more popular, of Persona. I'm a big fan of both. I started with Shin Megami Tensei though. So I started with Shin Megami Tensei 3. I love 3. I love the DS game. So 4 and 4 Apocalypse. I actually played through 3, 4, and 4 Apocalypse this year as well. So
Nice.
I've been in RPG
I really don't blame you then for not beating this one. That is a lot of that is a lot of JRPG.
A lot of Jack Frost going hee ho in my face. So it is it's a series I absolutely adore. Pokemon is inspired by Shin Megami Tensei. Not a lot of people know that. So it is essentially like a monster catching game, but like take that to a brutally hard degree. It is one of the more difficult RPGs, and I think that is a thing that a lot of people bounce off of with this series. It's ruthless and it's very throwback. It's like it's turn-based. You fuck up one turn, and here you go. You just got a game over. You have to manually save. It'll kick you back. If you're not good about saving your game, it'll kick you back a good like 5 hours. It is one of those. But I have a lot of love for games like that. Like that's something that I grew up on. I'm a big RPG guy, and like that's something that I got very used to back in the day. I've started a whole 60, 70-hour RPGs over because I got to a boss that I couldn't beat. And this really just kind of reinforces some amazing nostalgia. It takes a lot of changes, it's gone through a lot of changes compared to the previous Shin Megami Tensei games. You're working in a pseudo open world, and you're running around and you see all of the people on the map instead of running into more instead of the dungeon crawling that was in the previous Shin Megami Tensei games, which I think is actually a really good idea. It makes that world feel a little more menacing. Like you actually have to travel through and be much more careful within this like post-apocalyptic demon and angel run Tokyo. So like all the demons that you're summoning are mythological beings from all different types of religions and history. And they actually like characterize each one. You can go and look into each one, and it'll tell you the history of this mythological being. So it's bit of a history lesson as well if you want one, which I think is pretty fun. But the story and the music are so dark and dreary, and it has like such a, I don't know, it like almost runs the like close to being like an Evangelion or something like that, like a very just bizarre world to be in. So like if you're in the mood for something that just kind of like mess with your head a little bit and challenge how you feel about morality, because it does a lot of that too. It's like there's the lawful people, there's the chaotic people, and then there's like the people in the middle, and you kind of choose which path you want to go down. Every piece just works together to create something that I think is like truly one of my favorite RPG experiences in a long time. I can't wait to finish it. Yeah, the only reason I stopped is I think I got a little fatigued on Shin Megami Tensei this year. Even the beginning of the year, I beat Persona 5 Royal. So I've been like playing a lot of Shin Megami Tensei. I've probably put a good like 300-400 hours into Shin Megami Tensei this year alone.
Do you think you're going to come back and finish 5 and like after the?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Like very soon probably.
Nice.
This is definitely a game that I will see to completion, and more than likely start a new game plus immediately afterwards. Like it is apparently a little shorter than the Persona games. So Persona games are notorious for being like well over 100 hours. This is probably about 60. So a little bit more bite size. It's not at all still. It's a full meal, but less so than the buffet that is the Persona games. Just if you are a Persona fan coming into Shin Megami Tensei, the only thing that I will let you know is like no social links. It's all about the fighting and the atmosphere. So like you get a lot less of that like J-pop like influence, and it's more about like dark, dreary kind of like, once again, like it gets into that like Evangelion sphere a little bit more of that kind of just like, here's a super strange complex story to live in for a little while that's gonna like, I don't know, just maybe once again challenge how you feel about morals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely takes a different it goes a different route than the Persona games do, and I think it stands on its own really well for that. So if you can if you don't miss the dating portion of Persona, or you don't feel like you'll miss that, I think Shin Megami Tensei is gonna absolutely rock for you. So yeah,
Nice.
I think it's sick, and by far, if you don't count a one that's a little different, I think it's the best RPG that came out this year.
Okay. And I know you haven't beaten it yet, but
Yeah.
could you rank it against the other Shin Megamis, and where,
Yeah,
or do you want
yeah.
to wait until you've beaten it before you say such a grand statement?
I love Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. Which is weird. A lot of people are like Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse over Shin Megami Tensei 4.
Is that like
That's
a
like
Persona
it's like a
Royal thing?
sequel / epilogue.
Okay.
It's not a royal thing, so it's like its own game.
Hmm.
It's not like it's not additional content on a pre-existing game. It's a continuation of the previous story. But I think they just add so much amazing quality of life that makes that game a lot more fun to play. And Shin Megami Tensei 5 takes away some of that quality of life because I think people complain that game was a little too easy. So this game's pretty ruthless. It's more in the vein of Shin Megami Tensei 3, so it's a lot more straightforward. I think I'm gonna have to wait until I beat it, but it's either going to be it's gonna edge out Shin Megami Tensei 4 or Apocalypse, or it's gonna beat it for sure. It's
cool.
It's a really good one of those.
Nice. My next game is also an RPG, and that is Wildermyth.
Ooh, wow! It made the top 10. That's crazy. Yeah. I'm glad I recommended it.
And I've only no, thank you for the recommendation.
No worries.
It was like a month. I guess it was like a couple months ago, and I was like, okay, I need a few more games to throw on my list here, and you definitely recommended this one. So
awesome.
Yeah, and I've only played one campaign, and it's in my top 10 at number 7. So I think that's just a statement of how good it is. How unique it is, and so yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week, or not last week, but a few days ago. But I guess to say some different things about it, I mean, in terms of like the actual turn-based grid strategy part of it, as someone who's played a lot of Into the Breach and played a ton of Fire Emblem and games like that, I think it's really unique and cool in that way. It's like very simple in terms of there's just 3 classes. I like one thing when I listened to an interview with the developers, one thing they talked about was how they very specifically didn't want a healer in there because it kind of takes away the tension. It's like if you can always run back and heal, then the fear of your characters dying is way less. And then it also just kind of slows the game down a lot, and you're kind of doing this janitor work, so to speak, of like just okay, I'm going to send this guy back and heal him up, and then send him back into battle. And I think that is such a huge. Just that philosophy alone says so much about the game, because it does make these fights more intense. And if someone dies, like in Fire Emblem, I always restart my save, and I feel like I never really experienced like characters' deaths, and I feel like I'm playing the game wrong in a way. But Wildermyth is way more intentional with like how it's supposed to be played, and I think that's really awesome. And the magic class that they have instead of a healer is really cool. The way you're kind of infusing things in the environment, and depending on what it is, you're like either flinging a bookshelf at someone, or if it's like a source of fire, you could like light someone on fire, or you could power up your teammates if they're near it. Like that's really cool. Yeah, good strategy stuff, and just the characters. I talked about Braun Brock, my main man, who was one of my favorite characters of the year, who was one of the members of my party, and it was him and 2 other characters who were kind of the main trifecta of my party, and they stayed alive for many decades and kind of led the party. And people came and go, but they were like this core, and the way that they developed over time and had these life-altering effects happen to them was really cool. One of the characters had a son, and then he joined the party, and that was fun. And then I want to talk about one exchange that happened. That was just one of the funniest things that happened to me in games this year. Was one guy joined my party at some point. His name was Mole, and he was just very boisterous. He's a guy who'd like go into the bar already drunk and just like talking up to people, and just he would always go into fights without thinking about anything. He was just very bullheaded. And his name was Mole, and he was. Like at first I was like, this guy's kind of annoying, but then eventually he grew on me for just being this kind of quirky, charming guy. And yeah, so eventually at one point we go into this dungeon, and there's like these 3 urns that are at the end of this dungeon, and it's like you get to choose what you want to do with them. And of course, Mole doesn't consider what the consequences would be. He just goes and grabs like the biggest, shiniest one, and because of that, it turned him into a frog. And so he was this guy named Mole who looked like a frog, and I just thought that was the funniest
And
thing.
he's
And then
bullheaded.
yeah, and the coolest thing about that too is he was kind of like my tank on the team, and that gave him an ability where he could shoot out his frog tongue and hooked enemies, which worked
Oh,
perfectly
that's
because he would
sick.
just go up to like a choke point, and then he would just pull enemies in. So it was like really cool strategically, but also just this really memorable story beat, and then just the comedy of him being named Mole and being a frog. So yeah, this game just is that all the time, just like these funny little exchanges, these character
Man.
beats. You could like put in characters if you want. You can also play it co-op, which I never did. But yeah, I love Wildermyth. I think it's such a creative game. It's a great strategy game. It's a great story, great RPG. The things you do in the overworld as well is pretty cool. The way that you can like build bridges and build mountain passes and things like that. You're defending enemies. It's just a great game all around. I had a lot of fun with it. It's one that I'll definitely every few months I feel like come back to and check out a new campaign. And I think there's a lot of community created content that's
Oh, sick. I
part
didn't
of
know
the game
that.
too, so people could make a campaign or make characters or make weapons or whatever, and that's kind of built into the game as well, I think. So that's pretty sweet as well. It's definitely a game that's going to have legs for many years, and yeah, love it so much. Such a fun and quirky game.
It looked so up your alley when I saw it. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, this man has to know. He has to know
Yeah.
about this. And like, I can't wait to play it as well. Like, just to have your own group of just, I don't know, the
Misfits.
parties. Yeah. Your
it's
group
great.
of misfits. Your party members seem wacky every single time, and they just get up to hijinks. Everything I've heard about that game seems so phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that like made me not invest a whole bunch of time into it initially was art style, which is
Yeah.
lame. It's
I don't
a
like
lame.
the art
No,
style
no,
that
I'm
much,
not. I'm not
personally.
saying their art style is lame. It's lame of me for that to be a reason that I haven't touched it yet. Like I definitely think it deserves time, and that shouldn't be a reason.
I really don't blame you. I was the exact
Yeah.
same way. And then when you were like, hey, you should check out this game when I asked for recommendations, that was like what put me over the edge and wanted to go
Right.
for it. But I'm the same way, man. There's like so many games that come out every single week at this point that for me, yeah, honestly, if I'm watching a trailer and I'm just not really vibing with the art style, I'll just click away because there's so many other games that I'm going to be into
True.
just off the hop. So I do not blame you at all for that being your reason, but I think it's worth it, and I think it almost works to the D&D nature of it that you're moving around these like little cardboard cutouts, and it is janky, but you still get the characters' faces and reactions to things, so you still can have an emotional connection to them, even if it's pretty. And part of it too is that there's so much content in here, and so much of it is like procedurally generated and stuff that I think that allows them to do a lot. Like there's so many weapons and so many characters. At least it seems like it from my one campaign that you kind of had to do something in a way to get procedurally generated content in there. And yeah, the art style suffers for it, but I think that's shouldn't stop anyone from going to check it out. And yeah, I don't think even what I've said now, like that's not spoilers, right? Because my story is going to be completely different from what you're going to have. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it reinforces that like board game aesthetic it's going for, like which
definitely.
I definitely need to. I need to get that game more time. I played it for 30 minutes maybe and just kind of moved on. But I see the value in that thing a ton. Like I can't wait to jump in.
Yeah, cool. Let's hop into your number 6.
Number 6 is Inscription.
Ooh.
So a little lower than you probably expected this to be, despite the fact that I adore this game. This is this top 6 is just bangers now. Like you said you had yours in tiers. Like this top 6 for me is like they all could fight for number 1.
Crazy.
And I've shuffled this top 6 around a few times within the last like 2 weeks, a lot. Inscription, man, what can I say about Inscription? Like we talked about it a little bit in
spoilers are open.
Segments.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah, but holy crap, I have never played a game like Inscription in my life. I am a huge card game fan, but like I've heard a lot of people talk about Inscription as like even if you don't like card games, you should try this. Like, and I have to agree, it is such an experience. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, because I don't think we got into this much of what Inscription actually is. So you are a character called the Lucky Carter. You do not realize you are him until a little farther into the game, where they start showing you him in a FMV format. So he's like a real person that like you see his recorded footage. But before then, you were essentially trapped in this cabin, and it has this kind of just like WASD. You move left, you move right, you move forward, like, or you look left, you look right, you look forward, and then you can just like move forward, right?
Yeah, it's grid based, but doesn't
grid based
doesn't
movement,
look grid based, but it is, yeah.
Very similar to like an old school dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
But you're just trapped within this room. There's a table, and then there's a spooky man with a camera. And you are essentially throughout that first wave trying to just get his camera from him. And it is a complicated list of little puzzles that you have to do within this room alongside the main part of the game, which is the card game. So there's like a room you can interact with all types of little like pieces inside the room, like a clock, or there's a book that you can flip through. There's a cage with I believe there's the wolf is inside in some way. So yeah, there's and you can find additional cards throughout that room as well. But the main meat and potatoes is sitting down at the table and playing this guy in cards until you eventually defeat him. It's handled a bit like a roguelike. So you will beat him and beat him and beat him. A roguelite. You'll beat him and beat him and beat him. And every time you die, he takes a picture of you and you get to create a card based on cards you had in your hand. And you can end up with some really crazy overpowered stuff this way, which is like where I think this game initially just starts to shine outside of its like general bizarre aesthetic and the weird warbly nature of all of the speech and just like the general discomfort that game creates. But like it really starts to shine here because like you start just mopping the floor with this guy at a certain point. Like your card can be like do enough damage to end a round and be zero cost and like have all these additional features on it that like make it seem like you're going to steamroll him. And then you do hit points where it's like, no, they actually figured out how to handle these big goofy cards as well, and they'll stuff it. So you get this like ego throughout the game, and then they constantly bring you back down to square one.
Well, I love too that, you know, those death cards that you make, like he can play those against you too. So sometimes it's like, here's my god card. He pulls it out, and you're like, oh shit, I am like I can't kill this guy because he's waterborne, and he does like 10 damage.
Yeah,
it's like I am screwed here.
So that initial game in itself is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Like that piece alone is enough to make that game a game of the year contender. But then they just go so much further than I had any expectation. I don't know if you're familiar with, have you ever heard of Frog Fractions?
I've heard of it, but I don't know much.
I'm not going to tell you anything about. I'm not going to talk about Frog Fractions then. The only thing I will say about Frog Fractions is it does something similar where it like completely subverts your expectations at a point. So you beat this first. You finally get to the final boss of that first act, and then the entire game changes. And you are in a like 1632-bit world where you are walking around as a little sprite instead of being this it was first person at first, and now it's like literally any like sprite game you could think of. And you're walking around fighting people in cards that way, and the rule sets completely change. And initially you are working within a rule set that like the spending cost for the cards is blood and bones, right? And then it moves on, and then you have blood, bones, and you have a dozen other mechanics like batteries or energy and like
the gems,
different gems, right? Like so each one of the like main villainous style characters within the game has their own way that they play out that card game that works very closely to Magic. I'd say it's very Magic inspired card game. But man, like once you switch to that, you're like, holy crap, they totally changed everything. And then you beat that and they do it again. And every time it sounds like, oh yeah, like it sounds like something that would be easy to expect. Oh yeah, they're gonna flip it again. It's gonna be crazy. But it never stops being impactful to the very last second.
Well, it's matched with like just an amazing story and a super unique story as well. I love the like creepypasta nature of it. I love that
Yeah.
from the beginning, like that initial part that when you start up the main menu, you put in continue instead of new game, and I feel like
Yeah.
that already sets the tone. And the fact that you feel like you're stumbling on something that you shouldn't be, like, never ends. And like the more and more you go deeper, it's like, yeah, you're just so invested in the mystery that, yeah, each time it's like shocking and interesting. You're just like, what does this mean? Like, it's great.
And like they further push that mystery and that story through these FMV moments, and in addition to what's going on within the game, because like all the cards early on start to become sentient, and you start to realize that they're actually your antagonists. And like to the last second, it feels like you don't even know who the real antagonist is. There's all types of weird history and meta and ARGs going on with the game too. So like, I think I have like a 60% understanding of what's going on, and it goes way, way deeper.
Yeah.
Like it goes way deeper outside of the game. Like there's an ARG. I talked about this a little bit where like there's a YouTube channel of the Lucky Carter, which is the main character of the game, has his own YouTube show where he is literally reviewing, I think he's reviewing some real card games too, which is kind of interesting. And then he goes so far as to having these videos where he's going to real places in the world, and people have gone out of their way to find these places in the real world, and there's real stuff there. Like he's buried actual inscription discs. The whole like goal of the characters within the game is to upload the game to Steam, right? Or upload the game to the internet. It used to be just this floppy disk, and this floppy disk has all of this weird like old dark history about it too, that like I believe Hitler had.
Oh my
like
God.
the like, so there's old data within the disk, and that old data is like a old demon that has been living for hundreds and hundreds of years.
This is beyond my level at this
This
point.
is what I'm saying. There's
I'm
so
lost.
much. There's so much in this game. Like the story goes so much deeper than I had any idea. And like, yeah, apparently, the thing that is trapped within the old data literally used to be owned by Hitler and was owned by people way before it. And like, I wish I remembered the name of the demon, because it's like real. It's a real thing. Like this is a real conspiracy theory.
Weird, man.
That like it actually existed, and they've incorporated it into this game and created this, like, I'm telling you, it goes so deep. It goes so deep. Like I said, have barely wrapped my head around like how far the rabbit hole goes on this. But what I have seen is just like, I cannot believe, I think this is made by like one or two people.
Yeah, I think the main game itself is Daniel Mullins making it. And then I think a lot of the art and stuff, like he just bought it online pretty much. He just bought it from like an online whatever.
Yeah, you look at the credits, and it's literally credits for assets. Yeah. And where it almost looks like a like references on a like,
it's cool. It's not like
a document instead.
It's weird. It's not like art because I feel like that's so rare that it doesn't feel like art you've seen in other places. Like it all feels like it was made for this game, so it doesn't feel like that makes it lesser or that things are disjointed in any way. I think it was just a great way for him to like make this 3D game and have more assets and be able to do everything he wanted to do. I think that's a cool thing, and I wonder if more people will follow in suit and be like, people are okay with that. Like I need to do that in my game.
A personal favorite part of Inscription, just to shout it out while it is, I'm sure we're going to talk about more Inscription here in a bit. But is when you are fighting, I can't remember which boss it is. I believe it. Actually, I just can't remember which boss it is, but there's a point where you have to use files on your actual. It was the archiver, yeah. You have to use files on your actual computer to create cards, right, and do damage. And the larger the file size, the more damage you can do, or the older the file. And I was like really pissed because I just like reinstalled everything on my computer, so I didn't have any really old files. So like at that point, it was actually harder for me. But there's some people who will have stuff like going back years and years and years and years, and this thing will be mega powerful for them. But like I was literally using game files because I know they're like 30 gigs or so
Yeah.
to attack this enemy, and it was wild. It was like, you're not allowed to see this.
Yeah. I never gave permission for this.
Exactly. You can just see everything in my computer. That's not okay. And then it makes it seem like it's installing things on your computer, but it's actually not.
Makes you think you're deleting some files or a file at some point too, which is kind of scary. Which I also heard in an interview that he actually like was gonna make it delete that file originally. Like that was his original plan, but game testers were like, "No, dude, that's
Please
terrifying."
Don't do this. Yeah.
But it's still, like when I was playing it, it felt like it actually was gonna happen.
Yeah, you had real fear. So I was like, I was trying to delete something. I was like, I won't miss this, I think. Or I can reinstall this, no problem. Like it just does such a good job of making you uncomfortable even outside of the game, which I think is like a really, really cool thing. Anytime a game can break the fourth wall and make me feel experiences outside of the game, I think that's like impressive.
Yeah.
Apparently there's like a Word document that he's made that was a part of the ARG, which has a whole game built into it as well.
Crazy.
Like a fully fleshed out game. Like
yeah, I'm definitely going to go back and play this guy's older games because apparently he does some fun meta stuff as well. And like, I think Pony Island is one of them.
Yeah, Pony Island's the one that I'm aware of, and I've never played that. So like, I think I'm right there with you. I might have to do
maybe we should do a podcast episode on that game too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Episode. For sure. Inscriptions, one of the coolest things I've ever played in my life. I will put it up there as one of the best games I've ever played in my life. And like, I can't believe it's number 6. It deserves number 1, but it can't have it because there's just 5 games more personal.
It was a really good year for games.
Yeah,
I like that there wasn't like an obvious front runner, like from the AAA sense, like there has been last year's, but like this year is really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Surprisingly, too. I think in the beginning of the year, I was like, all right, I think I'll knock out my favorite games of the year within the first like 2 or 3 months, and like lo and behold, I have stuff on here that came out a couple months ago.
Yeah, Inscription is on my list. It's higher than 6, so I'll add a couple more things when we get to it. But God, what a great game!
Fantastic.
What is number 6? Number 6 on my list is Unpacking.
Nice.
We talked about this quite a bit last week, but let's talk about it some more. I was even my girlfriend's been playing this game the last couple days, and so
cool.
In bed last night she was playing it, and I was like, man, I should have fought harder for the music. The music is so good in this game. There's some tracks that I forgot about. Like as she was going through, I'm like, man, I just love this game so much, and I'm so happy to put it at number 6. Like this one is pretty solid. We'll talk about this again. 5 and 4 for me are like I could switch those around. And I talked about 7 through 9 could switch around, but like Unpacking is very solidly up here at number 6. And yeah, I just love the game. I love the aesthetics of it. It's very nostalgic for me. I love the pixel art, and then the music is great. Kind of the way the age of the character roughly follows me in terms of my gaming history of like having the GameCube and then a Wii and going from a DS up to a 3DS and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so fun. Like, yeah, just having these little artifacts of your own history to like follow you with.
And
like,
even
I don't know.
There's like game cases that you're unpacking too, and you know they don't say like Mario Kart on there, but they're very clearly inspired by certain things. And like there's definitely Melee, definitely Mario Kart. So just like from the GameCube era, just like very cool that like some of my favorite games are kind of just being referenced in this way that is, you know, trademark copyright friendly without them getting in trouble, hopefully. I think this game really surprised me in the way it is able to tell a captivating story and the changes this character goes through. I won't spoil the individual things because I think, Dante, you got to play this, but it's so subtle in the way it does things. Just like, I guess I'm going to get a little spoilery on this just for the sake of us being here. But you know, there's one level where you decorated this house that you moved into, and then the next level is like you're decorating the same house, but you're unpacking like these different boxes. Like your boxes were just classic cardboard. These ones are like kind of white with a red stripe, so they look different. And then you realize that you're like unpacking someone else's belongings into your house, and the way that's kind of like telling the story of this person that you're now living with. The things that your character grows up with, like they always kind of are interested in drawing, and then that becomes a bigger part of the story later on. things like that, like where you move into a house with a partner and then you move out, and it's interesting to see the kind of reactions your character has to those things, and all of that without words. Like at the end of every level, you like you put one photo into a photo book, and then the character writes like one little line of dialogue that lends to some story, but that's the only written dialogue in the game. Everything else is
That's
just
cool.
story through the items you bring with you, the things that you don't, the things that evolve over time. Like even you have this one little figurine that you have from like childhood, and it's just like one of those like kind of Warhammer things where it's a little gray,
Yeah.
action figure. And then I think it's like the fourth or fifth time you move, you like finally have painted it, and I thought that was cool.
Nice.
Little
I
details like
love
that.
storytelling like
Yeah.
that. I love that stuff. Like
Even just like the books, like once again, they're not titled in the game, but like you can tell what kind of books they are
Mhm.
and the kind of interests that your character has. Um, and then one of my favorite things too is like when you're done a level, you can like watch a GIF of your hour that you spent building this level. You can watch like a GIF of it like in real time, and it's like ding, 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 all these little things like just plunking through, and watch all of your actions are being recorded. The sound effects are great, as I mentioned. The music, yeah, I love this game, and I just wanted more levels. I mean, it tells a very compelling and tight knit story that I'm happy they ended where they did instead of going like further. But yeah, I just want more levels. I just love this game. I think it's super unique, and once again, a studio that I'm just like, okay, I'm on board. Whatever you make next, I want to see it because this is such a creative game with just so much love into it. And once again, I listened to an interview with the developers, and just the way they talk about game design and the way they develop the story over through iterations, just such an amazing game that I think everyone should pick up. It's on Game Pass, so
I
go
did
play it
not
there.
realize it was on Game Pass also.
Yeah, and I would
Fun.
recommend playing it on. It's on Switch, I think, but I think it works well with a mouse. Just that seems to be like the best way to interact with it, in my opinion. So that's how I'd recommend playing it. But if you're playing on Xbox or Switch, it's still worth it. So yeah,
Nice.
that's my number 6. And
Yeah.
with that, Dante, we're moving into the top 5. This is where things get
Ah,
extra spicy.
intense.
What is your number 5?
All right, my number 5 is a game we didn't talk about at all so far, which is
All
I
right.
don't know. That's cool. It's Monster Hunter Rise.
Okay.
I love Monster Hunter. Like if they release a Monster Hunter in a year, it's getting in a top 10. Like I will put a good 200 hours into every single Monster Hunter you put in front of me. This is, I want to say, quite possibly my favorite Monster Hunter game. It's definitely pushing up against. I think World is super good at like creating an environment for a lot of people to get introduced to Monster Hunter for the first time, and especially just like it being gorgeous. Monster Hunter Rise takes all of the great parts of World while kind of putting in a lot of the older school things that were cool about Monster Hunter, bringing back a lot of awesome monsters, giving you this new mechanic for maneuverability. So you start off with you get a what is it called? A Palamute.
Right.
There's Palicos, which are the cats. You have a Palamute now, which you can literally mount this dog and just like fly all over the map. You also have these bugs that you use to like grapple hook throughout the map too, and they actually create different moves that you can use as well. So like the way that they give you new move sets is very similar to older like DS, 3DS Monster Hunters. My favorite Monster Hunter before World is probably like 4, which had a lot of this kind of different moveset mechanics, which I thought was super cool. And they haven't really experimented with that in a long time. And they finally bring that back. And you can just do it makes it so the weapons within Monster Hunter don't get so stagnant over time. Like you end up finding your main weapon because every weapon feels so drastically different. It feels like playing a different game every time you switch a weapon. So what I used to do would be play switch axe for a long time, and then I would switch to longsword, and then I would switch to dual blades just because I would get tired of one. Now I've just played switch axe for a good like 200-300 hours and been able to like switch attacks and switch maneuverability moves or modes. That way I feel like I'm constantly playing a different game within that weapon I really enjoy, right? Like whereas before I would just love that weapon to the point that I just like almost rode the wheels off. I don't think it does so much incredibly different from previous Monster Hunters, but it just does like it's iterative, right? But it's a really great iteration. I love the new town and just the new atmosphere. It's like an East Asian vibe that is different from what I'd say the last Monster Hunter felt a little bit more like European. So it's like definitely a you're it's kind of like I don't know, lots of like paper umbrellas, and the cats that cook for you cook all Asian inspired meals, and
Right.
there's like pagodas and like just it just feels very old Eastern Asian, and it's very I don't know, it's just like a nice world. Like I feel like out of the different atmospheres that you've gotten in the Monster Hunter ones, I think this is probably one of my favorites. It's just a very different visual than we've gotten in the past. Trying to think of anything else that's just like super standout about Monster Hunter Rise. It's so high on my list, but I think it's so high on my list just because I love Monster Hunter. Like I feel like I have to convince people about Monster Hunter as a whole instead of convincing people why Monster Hunter Rise specifically is so great. It just is the best it's been.
That's great,
They
man. Because like
yeah,
World, people have been so high on World,
so
so
good.
to hear that this is just like on par with that
Yeah.
is pretty great.
And then mobile, right? It's so it's on Switch now. So until I think next week it comes out on PC,
Right?
or in two
Yeah,
weeks it
yeah.
comes out on PC, which is exciting in its own right. But like, of course, there's that staggered launch thing that happens. So there's like new content coming to the Switch version that's not coming to the PC version. So I
And
feel
then
like I'm
even
kind of
like
stuck on Switch.
I think they announced that like later in the summer, so like many months away, that there's like a bigger DLC again for the
Yeah.
game, right? So
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's the
guessing you're
one
gonna be playing
I'm
that as well,
talking
right?
about. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna put this down until the next Monster Hunter comes out.
Right.
Yeah, it is just an incredible one of those. I want to say something like stark and standout about Monster Hunter Rise, and I can't even find it outside of like, hey, if you really love Monster Hunter, this is a good one. It's a
Yeah, I
real
think
good one.
the games are so dense, and I
Mhm.
know for myself, I know that it's like you got to spend the hours with it to like
Yeah,
figure it out. And I
yeah,
jumped into the demo. I like that Switch has been doing a lot of demos
for sure.
lately, so I played it for an hour or two, and I just in that time, it just wasn't feeling good, which I know is it takes time. But I was
Yeah,
like,
well,
it was trying to explain to me how to like set a trap, and I was like, I don't know how this works, and it's not making sense to me. And there's so many buttons that I just kind of dipped. But I think someday I will love one of these games. And I don't think it's like I'm waiting for the certain game. I think I'm just waiting until
gotta
I feel like I
invest.
want to spend that time. But knowing that you're such a big fan
I
also
love them.
is a good reason for me to jump in when the next one
Do it,
comes out, or
man.
maybe I'll decide to pick up Rise at some point, and I'll be like, yo, can you teach me how to
Once
play
again, I
this?
will
But
I will be your guide. To that credit, I do think the demo did that game a disservice. It puts you into a pretty late game fight and doesn't explain a lot of its mechanics, and like the button combinations and just the control schemes of that game are complicated. Like if you're
yeah,
not playing it from the very very beginning where they're explaining how to use the wire bug, which is the grappling hook thing I was explaining
right,
earlier,
right.
or how to use all of the new tools that they've given you, you're at a pretty stark disadvantage. Like I actually thought I was gonna dislike this one compared to World after playing the demo, and then I was like, you know what? Like I just really like Monster Hunter. I'm gonna give it a fair shake, and now I like it more than World.
Yeah,
So
nice.
I can't wait for there to be more content because like at this point, World has just way more content. So they're kind of hard to compare. But like as like the vanilla version of World versus the vanilla version of Rise, Rise is leaps and bounds a better game.
That's great, and I feel like it's Monster Hunter seems like a game that would be pretty intensive on the
Mhm.
system for me. So it's cool that
Yeah,
Switch is
it
able to
runs
handle it
great.
well. Yeah,
That I said that like 100 times while playing this. Like, I cannot believe this is on the Switch. I cannot believe this is on the Switch. This runs amazing. It it does everything that World did at a smaller scale. Like, I'm baffled. Like those big
crazy.
open areas, like there's no loading in between zones or anything like that. Like in previous Monster Hunter games, there would be like 12 zones, and every time you go from zone 1 to zone 2, it would load. Like this doesn't have any of that. Like it still numbers the zone, so you can like call out to your friends like, hey, the monster's in 12 or something like that. But like you can just run straight there, or
Hmm.
better yet, zip line your way there in a way that makes it feel like you're flying literally in the map. It's the thing that a lot of games have been doing recently that I think Monster Hunter Rise does really well is just like make me mobile as hell. I want to zip around everywhere, and it lets you do exactly that. And then
Nice.
also lets you ride the monsters if you want to. So
That's
like
great.
you can get a position where you end up riding the monster really simple. Like it to get into that that situation where you're riding a monster is like super simple. So I would literally just jump on a monster and just run him to the actual monster I'm supposed to be fighting, and then just like make them fight, which is like super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of like new mechanics they added that are just like honestly a blast. I don't really hate anything new they added. It feels like it all is of benefit, and I hope they continue, because obviously there's going to be like a World 2 at some point. And if they don't add like the Palamute and the Wire Bug, like I'm going to miss them terribly. So fingers crossed they realize that they kind of nailed it with some of those mechanics.
Is this your most played game this year in just terms of raw hours?
Ooh, it's
like
up
maybe
there.
Shin Megami
yeah,
like
Shin Megami
series,
Tensei as a series is definitely higher than that. Or Final Fantasy 14. I'm in deep with
on
that
one.
one.
Endwalker grind.
Even before Endwalker, I was playing that game every day. So
yeah, especially if you factor in like 5-hour queue times, right? That like will pad your game. We won't get into that. Unless maybe we will. I don't know if it's on your list.
It is. That's a tough part of Endwalker. Anyway, that was a low blow.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know why I'm so forgetful today. I forgot to do any sort of ad break. So let's go do a quick ad break right now, and then we'll be back for my number 5.
Cool.
And we are back. Okay, number 5. So this is funny. You talked about how this was one game on your list that we didn't talk about last week. That is the same one for me as number 5.
Nice.
And this is going to be Loop Hero.
Oh, snap.
Have you played this game at all?
I have not played it. I watched my friend Joe literally play through the last like quarter of that game. I guess it could be this. It's one loop, right? Like you're not doing multiple levels in that game. So I watched him complete and fight the final boss. But I need to experience it myself. It looks
it
looks like its own thing. It's very neat.
It came out really early this year, and I think for me it was very much like this thing to beat for a lot of the games on my top 10 list. Like, are you better than Loop Hero? And as it shows here, like not many games were able to beat out Loop Hero.
Holy crap.
I think just structurally, it's so interesting to me because it starts out and it is kind of like a roguelike structure, and it exposes itself as like a reverse tower defense in a way that you're a character going around this loop and you're the person who's adding the things that spawn enemies, and it's just trying to find this balance of making the game like making enough enemies on screen that you're getting the resources you need and you're leveling up enough to be able to take out the boss later on, but also you don't want to overwhelm yourself. And then you also, it's very much like, okay, I got to do one more loop here for one more round of treasure, but if I die, then I lose everything, and that sucks. And then, but then it's also kind of like an idle game because you don't actually do the fighting; your character just does it on his own. But then it's also an RPG because you're constantly like upgrading your gear and choosing builds and stuff like this. And then it's also like a town builder because once you're out of the loop, you're back in this town and you're putting stuff down, you're upgrading stuff based on your resources, you're trading your resources in and out. So it is just this wild amalgam of genres that somehow works perfectly and is like super addicting. I'm definitely not done the game because it's super difficult. Like beating these last bosses, like I still have like a few more to go, and I'm like 30 hours in or something like that.
Holy crap! Yeah, he made it sound like he played a lot. Like I was catching him on the tail end, and he was like, "I don't think I'm gonna beat it," and he was like, "I'm gonna beat it."
Yeah. It's I think
it was fun to watch.
I've just reached this point because I just got to this part where you can like exchange the resources you have for the more rare ones. So I think I can like really start leveling up my character that way. Because you're kind of like you're leveling up your character in a meta way, but then also in each loop you're doing this up as well. I could have talked about this game in terms of best visuals. Like if you look at it, and sometimes
it's cool looking.
Like for example, when your character's going around the loop, it's like literally like 12 pixels of one color. Like it doesn't look good at all. But then the character art is unreal, like amazing.
Yeah, it looks really great.
And like this, just the general style of it. It has the CRT filter, which I love any game that has a CRT filter. And then the music as well is really good. I could have talked about that last week. I think I held back on those. I'm like, I kind of want like a little surprise pick on my on my list next week. Um, what else can I say? I think yeah. I mean, it's the boss fights are really innovative. I think for me, my favorite part about it is just like the experimentation of you have these different tiles that you're placing, and at first they seem pretty straightforward, but then you realize like, oh, if I place this meadow next to if you place it next to anything, it like turns into a blooming meadow, and then it has like these different effects. And then there's like all these things of like you place a forest, then if you place this tower that like shoots out electricity, it'll like burn the forest down, and then it has these different effects. And then you can place like a vampire. If you place it next to like this specific library, you'll get like these vampire mages on the board. And like
That's sick.
just like none of these things are really explicitly told to you, and you can read in like the archives. You can kind of get clues on like, okay, maybe if I put this next to this, it'll do something. But just the experimentation of trying to figure out like what interactions will do anything, and those will lead to either ways you can get certain resources, or it might just be a bad thing. Like if you put a village down, which normally heals you and gives you a quest, if you put a vampire tower next to it, the vampires just destroy the village, and then you have to fight like this mini boss that's like just a surprise that was there in the first place. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's also a deck builder because you're building your deck of cards that show up
right.
as
There
you're
are
going
cards,
through. Yeah, it's a totally wild game, but yeah, it's super addictive. I played like I think 20 hours of it when it first came out, which seemed like a lot for the kind of game it was. And then this last couple of weeks when I was away from home, I didn't have my Switch, I didn't have my consoles. I was like, what do I want to play in the downtime where I'm like hanging out with my family and I'm just playing like a little game? I was like, okay, I'm gonna boot out Loop Hero again, and I just got totally synced into it again. I played like another 15 hours of it in the last 2 weeks, and I love the loop of this game. I love the weird amalgam of genres it is. I love the story is really strange. It's essentially
I was
that
gonna
you
say
yeah, you're
that
like
part seemed really cool.
yeah, it seems kind of cheesy at times, but that also builds into it. And yeah, it starts out that you're kind of in this world that nothing is left, like everything is just blank, like there's nothing in existence. And as you're on this loop and placing things, like you're rebuilding the world, and then yeah, you go back to your kind of camp afterwards and you're placing things that are kind of rebuilding the world. And then the way you just kind of interact when you encounter a new enemy type, some of them, if they're kind of humanoid and if they talk, then you'll have a little dialogue sequence with them, and you're kind of telling them like, hey, I'm trying to rebuild the world, like, can you help me? And most of the time it ends with them being like, no, fuck you, I'm gonna kill you. And then you start battling. But
yeah,
they'll
have like
I
purpose,
like
right? Like they're protecting their family or something like that. Like the harpies or something like that is trying to protect their kin. Like like everybody seems like they have their own reason for doing what they're doing, and while they're living within this completely empty, decrepit world. It seemed really neat to me. I like, once again, I watched a little bit of it, and like it really seemed super cool. It also seemed so mechanically heavy that I was like I was watching the end too, so like it was very overwhelming. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I think it paces itself really well, and obviously you're like choosing your progression in terms of which cards you're going to unlock, and that means like which enemies you're going to be able to fight. So yeah, it starts out very minimal. Like I think you just have a handful of cards, and then eventually you have. I mean, I'm not done yet, as I said, and I have a bunch of cards I can choose from. And then I guess the last thing to mention maybe is that you do have 3 classes you can choose from. There's kind of just the classic. There's a basic class that is a little bit of a jack of all trades, and then more of an assassin type character, and then like the necromancer is maybe my favorite, where you're summoning skeletons, and you can like build up the skeletons level, and then you can like spec your character in a way that will make it so your skeletons are really strong and have different abilities, and you unlock those over time too. So at the beginning you just have one class, but yeah, I love it. I don't think it's a game for everyone by any means, but it totally spoke to me. And I debated putting it at number 4 as well. Like it's really, really good. I love the game, and I like, honestly, I might just play more tonight because I'm not done yet, and I want to finish it because the boss fights are so cool. So I will beat it someday. But yeah, love it so much. Such a unique game. Can't wait to see more.
The bar for the year. I'm very excited to see what's like snuffed it out. That's wild. That I'm very excited to see the top 4. I know what one of them is. I have a good idea what one of them is.
All right. Well, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. Like surprise. I was very unsure whether or not I could get this on my top 4 or in my top 10 at all, just because it is kind of an expansion, but like it depends on how you look at an expansion. This comes off as like a full game. There's an 80 hours plus of content added, you know what I mean, of just story.
Yeah.
So there's so much video game here. And speaking of
that's
story,
deserving of a spot. I'm glad you put it on your list.
Too. I think so too. And considering how obsessed I've been with this game over the past like 6 years, it's going to make its way into a top 10 anytime I get the opportunity. Endwalker is literally the end of the story they started when they did A Realm Reborn. If people aren't familiar, Final Fantasy XIV started off as a gigantic flop. They scrapped the entire game and then kind of remade it and called it A Realm Reborn. And that was the beginning of what has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite game of all time. It's up there. It's not my favorite. Half-Life 2. I literally almost tried to push that over Half-Life 2. It's never going to happen. But anyway, this is them actually finishing the story of Final Fantasy 14. And I'm literally, I lied earlier. I said Shin Megami Tensei 5 is the only game I haven't beaten. I am in the last 10 or so hours of the Endwalker story. And I have to imagine they're going to open up some new ideas to keep this game alive, because like if this is it, then this is kind of it. And it feels like they are heading towards the end of what could be a lot of character stories, a lot of this planet's story as a whole. Like there is some serious finality here, and like they've just spent damn near 10 years like building up these characters and these antagonists and this world, multiple worlds, and to see this all getting like beautiful, nice, neat bows wrapped on every single character, every single thing that got left a loose end. Like it's pretty impressive storytelling. Like I relate it often to a television show that's been running for a really long time. They actually release the story content in that way too. Like every 3 or 4 months, they offer more story content. And then once every couple of years, they drop an expansion, which fills you, like it gives you so much story. And so that feels like a full season. And then it like has little like sneaky side seasons throughout the year. This time they've completely finished the story within one piece. So there's not going to be updates throughout the 2022 that continue the story. This is it. So like they've never really taken this approach to it, and it does give them an opportunity to feel like it's really completing things that have been left open-ended throughout the past decade. They added 2 new classes that are amazing, and I've been playing through the game as one of them. It's Reaper. It's edgy, and I love it. You get to do all types of just super edgy attacks that are just like blacks and purples and reds, and you turn into this like demon form that is like, I don't know, just like really, really exciting anytime you get to pop that. Yeah, it's more Final Fantasy 14, but like the best of it. Like if people just gushed about Shadowbringers being like the best in MMO has ever been, and like I think this is even better than that, like which I didn't think was possible. I was so ready for a disappointment, and I haven't even gotten that a little bit. Got some returns of some favorite characters I didn't expect to see, so that was like personally pretty exciting for me. I don't want to spoil this game much because I feel like the people who are playing Final Fantasy 14 have a really, really arduous task in front of them. Like if people have started Final Fantasy 14 recently, it takes a good like 300 hours to make through the story at this point. 400 hours. That's just insane. The story. But it's
fucking wild.
Yeah, but it's just the game. It's a game that's been out for a decade. Like people have had their opportunities. You know what I mean? Like if they're giving you 60-hour chunks every 2 years, it's a little bit more palatable. But there's a lot of people who are like, "Wow, Final Fantasy 14 is doing really big or doing really well, so it's getting really big. Let me jump into it." And then they're like, "Oh my god, there's a mountain to climb here." And that's just to get through the story. There's hundreds of days worth of content in that game. And everything that they've added has been amazing. The new zones are beautiful, they're gorgeous, and they change throughout the story, which is something I wasn't expecting, which it gets really exciting. Like I said, the world is ending, and you get to see some of these areas go through absolute hell. The music changes, and as I said before, best music in any video game for me. It is the most music that's in any video game, and it's varied, and some of it's like hyper poppy, and some of it's metal, and some of it's orchestral, and like they just really like go through the gambit, and they've gotten some phenomenal acts to kind of come in as like guest artists on their music. So like literally every piece of Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker feels like the best approach to an MMO I've ever experienced, and I can't wait to see this to the end. I'm sure it is going to get some tears flowing. They're gonna start killing some people soon that I've been like it. They feel like my friends. I've known them for so long. Like I'm so close and attached to them that like you can't take them away from me. I don't know, but if they kill Ishtola,
don't do it.
They might not get my sub anymore. That's for sure. That's my waifu, and yeah, if they take away Ishtola, then like yeah, I might have to at least stop paying for an additional retainer.
Yeah,
those are essentially it's like extra bag slots at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Final Fantasy 14. They continue to give me reasons to love Final Fantasy 14. And yeah, Square has done like just really, really knocked it out of the park, which has me even more excited for more Final Fantasy because Yoshi P, who is the person who brought Final Fantasy 14 back to life, is the person who's heading up Final Fantasy 16, which is a single player game. So this is his first run at that, I think. I don't know what games he did before 14, but like if he can do this on this scale, he's gonna nail whatever's coming next. I have to imagine so. Yeah, really impressed by that studio regularly, that they have just turned around what could have been a monster flop and created something that I think is like, as far as storytelling in video games, just absolutely genius.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. So yeah, Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker is my number 4.
Amazing. I feel like when you're done it, like maybe it climbs up to 1. It seems like that could be the
case.
But...
yeah, the only reason it's so low even is because it feels like it was a stretch to even get it on the list, because it is I don't know. I just feel like there's other games that like were wholly new experiences this year, and I feel like they deserve a little more shine than that thing that I always come back to.
All right. My number 4 is, and so this is the weird case where Loop Hero, I said that was kind of the benchmark, but this game actually came up before Loop Hero, so it kind of was there beforehand, and that's Hitman 3.
Let's go.
And like I said, I kind of debated, should I put Hitman 3? Should I put Loop Hero at 4 or 5? I kind of debated on that, but I'm pretty happy with this choice, and I think, honestly, we were originally planning to do these podcasts back to back, our part 1 and part 2. We ended up splitting it a couple days, and I feel like after just thinking about our lists and talking about these games last week, I was like, man, I feel like Hitman 3, like, is it recency bias because I've just played Loop Hero the last couple weeks and I'm like super high on it again. So I felt like it was only fair to put Hitman at 4. And I don't think I have too much to say about it more than we talked about last week. I just love the design of these games. I love these levels. I love that these kind of sandbox, like murder puzzles. They're super fun. They did a bunch of, each map is like something unique, except for I think the first one, but at the same time, this first one is kind of maybe an entry point for people who haven't played the other ones. But other than that, like the one I have on screen, or the China level Germany, like, and then Dartmoor Manor, all have these unique new mechanics in there. The game's beautiful, great music. It's the best story in the trilogy for me. And yeah, I just had like a huge Hitman binge earlier this year where I played Hitman 3, went back, played Hitman 2, went back, played Hitman 1. And
nice.
I think I'm not putting Hitman 1 and 2 levels in here for this ranking. It's just Hitman 3. And I think that's a statement that like even just those 5.5 levels are cranking up to number 4 here. And I think that's cool. I think that is really cool that you can, from Hitman 3, it's kind of just this database and you can play all the levels that are kind of brought forward. I think that's really cool. So
it's amazing they were able to do that, considering all of the like the licensing things that they went throughout making these games too. Like they IO split from IDOS, is that what it was? Or it was something like that.
They're like under the Square umbrella and then eventually split off and stuff. And I think it works.
Square,
benefit. Yeah. So it's cool that they're all. Yeah,
Does that even exist anymore?
yeah, I think so. I think they're
Okay.
rated stuff, but yeah, it's cool that you can play them all from one place. And I guess so. Here's my one like negative on the game, and that is that it has this always online function to it, where to actually level up progression and stuff like that, you have to be logged in online. Even though
Yeah.
I guess the online part of it is you're like comparing scores to other players. I don't care about that at all. So it's really annoying to me that sometimes I'll lose progression, or like sometimes I'll just be in a mission and I'll have to like go back in the menu, reconnect to online. There's already a
Yeah.
lot of like loading time in these games, especially because I'm playing it on PS4. So having like this other really annoying always online element to it, which for a game that I never have played online, is like really frustrating. But it still is pretty. And here's what I was going to say: when they combined all the games together, the file is smaller than the Hitman 2 file was. So I don't know what they did to like cut out extra data and stuff, but whatever they did, it's like a 60 gig file. My Hitman 2 file was like 80 gigs. So they somehow combined the whole trilogy into be smaller, which is great. I think like Call of Duty like
how do
intentionally
you do
bloats.
that?
Yeah, like Call of Duty like intentionally bloats their hard drives so that like it's like the only game you play, which is super sus, and I hate that.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize that was
they
what was
literally do that
happening there.
intentionally just so you like have less games to play other than just Call of Duty. But Hitman's like, no, let's make this a nice small file so you can go play Loop Hero, Unpacking, Wildermyth, like all these games. Yeah,
Man, that's not working for Call of Duty. I delete that game first.
I know.
If
For
I'm
me, it's
thinking
like,
of
well, I don't have room for you now, dude. Sorry.
Yeah,
like, I'm keeping
exactly.
Hitman 3 and Ghost of Tsushima instead. But I don't know. That's their strategy. And I mean, they sell a lot of copies. But anyway, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Hitman 3. I love this game. I cannot get enough. I'm excited for the new levels that are coming out later this year. And I'm sure I'll be talking about those levels again next year. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I think when those new levels come out, that'll be my moment. I really need to finish the trilogy. Like I don't know that I beat 2. I beat 1, and then I played a good bit of 2, but I never beat it.
I love, for me, I think that my favorite levels in 2 are the DLC ones. So you should definitely go back and do those ones. Like
they're in 3, right?
Haven Island, and like there's one that's just like a castle in the middle of like the ocean, which is just amazing. Like that level's great. So,
but all of them are in 3, right? So
you have to buy them all. Like
that's fine.
They're not included, but definitely worth it. And they do go on sale, and like they bundle everything together for a good price.
I'll just get 3 and then play through 1 and 2 within 3, and then move on to 3 again.
Yeah, I think like story wise, 1 and 2 you can play those in any order, but I think 3 you should play the levels in order. But even when I went back and played Hitman 1 after playing Hitman 3 and 2, I just like picked which level do I want to play next, and I didn't really care for the story, and I think that's a good way to do it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely will.
Yeah, so also because I was slacking on the ads, we'll go to another quick ad break here, and then we'll get into the elusive top 3. So we'll be back in 1 second. All right, Dante, we are into the big 3. Starting with you, what is number 3?
All right. So, number 3, a game we have talked about at length, and I think it once again this top 4 maybe could top 6 could all be number 1 in my head. Honestly, it's Deathloop. My number 3 is Deathloop. Dude, Arcane are on a completely different level. Maybe alongside IO is making these just perfect clockwork levels for you to just be in and use every single tool in your toolkit, which they give you tons of, and give you an opportunity to just like play exactly how you want to play, and even further than any Arcane game previously. Like the thing that I had serious issues with specifically the Dishonored games, is the fact that I feel like I'm stuck in a play style once I've started. If I want to go for a particular story beat or a particular ending, I have to play like really stealthy, or if things go wrong, I'm reloading instead of just like letting things happen the way they're going to happen. And Deathloop fixes all of that. The way that they have wrapped up the mechanics of Deathloop make it feel like they're incentivizing you to experiment and play with different things and approach the levels differently, which I think is just so smart. And it feels like they finally kind of nailed that piece of what they were working towards. Like they so much as reuse skills and spells from previous Arcane games, but they still feel like their own thing in this.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, because you do you can have 2 slabs, right, which are your the skills that you can use, and you're mixing and matching those throughout. There are 6 total. 6 total that you can switch out, and then there's Colt's one that he has all the time, and then there's Juliana's that she has all the time. You can't
Yeah,
have
I think
Juliana's,
it's.
and you can't take away Colt's, right?
Yeah, I think it's 5 or 6, pretty close.
Yeah. So, and then each of those slabs have almost their own trees that you get upgrades for, depending on how many times you've killed that visionary. Visionaries being the people that you're assassinating throughout the mission, and the whole goal of Deathloop is to reach the end of the game and have beaten all of the visionaries in one go. And the way that you get through that is by picking up all types of clues and just by like actually going through and killing these visionaries over and over and over again. And that sounds repetitive and boring, and it never is. It never is. Like, every single time you go into a level and it's a different time period, things have changed completely. There's new like minor objectives as well as major objectives within each level. They change visually a ton. Like Fierstad Rock, I believe, like you go in during the day and it's like this beach, and it's just like not so threatening, I'd say. And
yeah,
then
there's
you
just
go
like
back
music
later.
playing through the speakers, and people are kind of
Yeah.
hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go back later in the day and it's snowy and there's mines everywhere. Like, I probably have gotten killed more in that game by just stepping on a random mine than anything else.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, it just gives you this false sense of security that, like, oh, this level I can move around and no problem. But, like, oh no, it's midday. I actually have to be a little bit more careful. It just does some really, really fantastic work at never making a 40 to 50 hour game where you're playing through 4 levels feel like you're playing through 4 levels for 50 hours, right? Like, a phenomenal like opportunity to just like or a phenomenal job at making something feel varied consistently. But every single gun super fun to use, every power super fun to use. Switching and playing as Juliana instead of Colt is a blast. I loved messing with people. Like, it's very much like the Dark Souls like invasion style thing that is just like, it's so fun. Anytime I saw Juliana, I think a lot of people got a little nervous, and I was just like, let's go. I cannot wait to just beat this person's ass, because they came into my world and they're trying to fuck my day up. Like, you came to the wrong place, and most of the time I died. But it was still just super fun to have this like additional threat. Man, like, we talked at length about Deathloop already, and I feel like there is just so much more I can go into detail with. I will explain my one negative about this game, since it is so easy to wax poetically about this. Like, the story is super. I have two, and I'm going to get into a little bit of a spoiler territory. While I love the characters, there is some weirdness at the back end of the story. I think Colt spends a good little bit of the game flirting with Juliana, and then out of nowhere, you learn that Juliana's your daughter. And then, like, her reasoning from that point on seems to get a little loose for me as to why she's doing what she's doing. Because at the end of the day, she does seem like she just wants to be with him and for things to work out. And I think this could have been talked out instead of what's happened. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it makes it a little hard for me to it makes her motivations a little less believable for me.
Okay.
And that's kind of it, though. I think that's it. Like, outside of that, like, all the characters are so fun and interesting to be around that, like, it more than makes up for it. And that is only, I'd say, the last quarter, 6th, 8th of that game that actually, like, the story, I think, takes a turn. And, like, once again, that's starting to get a little bit nitpicky for me. The other thing that I really was hoping for, and this was a little bit of a disappointment about Deathloop, but once again, I'm nitpicking, is they add all these, like, pieces to go and figure out, and like, you're like, the whole crux of the game is you're trying to figure out all these clues that allow you to get all of the visionaries in the right place at the right time to eventually kill all of them. And I was really looking forward to figuring things out, and I feel like the game never really makes you. It really does kind of go, here's the place you need to go to now, and here's what you have to do. And I didn't feel like I had to think as much as I was hoping. I feel like that might be more at fault of marketing though than it is
honestly,
on the game.
Here's the fault: is I from the first minute, or like before I even started the game, I turned off quest markers, and I did
Oh,
not have
dude.
that issue at all. And it makes me
Yeah.
so sad that like pretty much everyone says that about the game, is like
Yeah.
breadcrumbs too hard. And like when like you said, it took you 40, 50 hours. Like I think you probably included some Juliana time in there, but like,
Oh yeah.
and it took me like 30 hours without quest markers. Like it took me longer to figure things out. And it makes me so sad when I hear people say that they played it for 10 hours and they're like, yeah, it just wasn't that good. It was too easy, like to figure everything out. And I'm like, man, I really wish they said at the beginning, like, here, turn off the quest markers, or like offer that suggestion, because I was keeping a daily journal, and I would like be like, okay, what do I know today? What are my ongoing theories? Like, where am I going to get everyone? And that was like my favorite experience of the game, was like cracking the code, figuring everything out. And yeah, if you turn quest markers on, it tells you exactly where you don't have to think at all. And that really is a bummer, especially because like one option in the menu fixes that issue completely, and they just like, who's gonna think to do that? I think I'm just so ingrained to do that now. Every game I go into settings, and it's because I've also played every Arcane game, and I know that I like playing those games without the HUD and just turning everything off. So that's why I did that for this game, and it turned out for a mystery game that was the best way to do it. But it is such a bummer, because that I mean, I haven't played the game with the quest markers, so it's hard for me to compare, but I feel like I liked the game 100 times more than everyone else, because figuring out the mystery to me was a favorite thing, and it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I feel like they sold that. Like that's what I was like. It might be a shame that the marketing went that direction. Like, I honestly wish it was the opposite. Like, the breadcrumby stuff was an accessibility feature.
Yeah.
Like, this is, or like accessibility, or these parts of the HUD marker are available on hard or on easy, but they're not available on hard, or they're available on easy, normal, and they're not available on hard. Like, just something to give me a feeling like maybe I should turn this stuff off. Because yeah, at the end of the day, I just felt like it might as well just had a big fat arrow pointing where you needed to go every single moment.
Like BioShock. Yeah, just a BioShock arrow. Like, telling you exactly where to go.
So, and now that I've beaten it, like, I know what to do, so there's no going back either.
Yeah,
like,
and there's
I'd
only
have to wait
one solution. So
yeah, I'd have to wait a decade and forget 90% of the game and then start it over without a HUD to really get that experience. So I guess that's a giant recommendation from us, is that, like, if you like playing games in a way that you're like figuring things out on your own, like, turn all that shit off on Deathloop, because like, while even with that stuff, it is still in my top 3. It is so fucking good. It is so good. From every angle, like, outside of a little bit of story weirdness and it just kind of like pointing me in the right direction. But like, even at the end of the day, playing it is where this game shines anyway. And like, all of the maneuverability and the gunplay and just like finding out ways to like start moving through that map. Like, when you start that game, you're so meticulous and you're like crouching everywhere, you're playing real stealthy. And then by the end of that game, I was like rooftops, flying to the visionary. Like, I feel like I could speed run every map. It just felt like you knew those maps like the back of your hand, while still, once again, not being fatigued by them, not feeling like, man, I'm back here again. Like, I fucking hate Updam. I don't want to be here ever again. It's like, no, I can't wait to like fuck shit up here completely differently than I did last time. Like, instead of using a sniper rifle and a silenced pistol, I'm going to go in with a shotgun and a machine gun and just like mow down everybody. And like, it just lets you do everything if you have an idea of how to proceed through a level, it's more than likely you have the opportunity to do it. And I think that's the coolest thing.
We'll talk more about Deathloop later.
Another one.
But my next one is pretty easy. This is where I put Inscription.
Very cool.
And yeah, I don't think I'll add too much, because between last week and our discussion we just had, I feel like we've talked about most of the things. I think maybe the one thing I'll add is, or two things. So one, another boss fight that I really liked at the end of the game is you connect to the internet and you're fighting the robot. You're fighting PO3 when you're connected to the internet. And at first it's funny because it's like, instead of like a mole card, there's like a picture of a mole. And then eventually it pulls in your Steam friends list, which I thought was really fun. And I played against a couple of my close friends. And then even one of my friends, it was really weird. Like, so I was streaming the game with a friend. I was playing it on Discord, and he joined in, and we were like in the factory. So we're like at the end, And he's like, "Oh, what game is this?" I'm like, "Oh man, I feel like this is kind of a spoiler, but like you should go play this game." And he's like, "All right."
Yeah.
And then he ended up like in that moment he bought it and like played for 2 hours. And then like the next day I went over and like at his house we just played through the first like 6 hours of the game again. I just love it that much. But it was
It's
funny that he was like one of the people in the final boss fight too. Like that was cool.
That is cool. I think there's
Great
some
fight.
additional mechanics there that like if two people are in that space at the same time or something like that, that person can actually like connect to your game. Or if there's some weirdness, like I think there's
Yeah,
actually
well,
like
there's like
net code built in.
you're like making a card and like sending it to someone, and I don't
Yeah.
think it's
Oh, that's
happening.
what it is. That's what it is.
I don't think it's happening live, but I think you do at least send a card to someone who
Mm-hmm.
adds it to the pool. Yeah, that's a great addition too. And then yeah, me and Dante were talking about this before, but this game, which I heard was 10 hours long, and how long to beat.com tells me it's like 10 to 12 hours long, took me 30 hours. And I think the reason for that
That's so
was,
funny.
well, it was two things. One, I got stuck at one point
Mhm.
because you have to use this knife at a
Yeah.
specific. You don't have to use it at a specific point. You just
That
use
day
it
was
anytime.
funny.
But I
You
use
just
it at the
popped
one
into
time you
Discord.
can't.
You're like, bro, I don't know what's going on here. You're like,
Yeah.
can you like just help me a little bit? And I was like, how do I do this without spoiling anything?
Which you did a good job of. You didn't
Okay,
spoil
good.
anything, and yeah. So I mean that added a lot of game time because I beat Leshy 4 times before like doing the golden run,
Wow. Yeah.
and I mean that wasn't an issue for me. Like I loved that. I
The
loved that
first
card game so
era.
much.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also kind of just alluded to this, but I played the whole game on screen share with a friend of mine, and it was kind of just impromptu. Like I was just playing it. I was in like the first 15 minutes, and my friend's like, "Hey, what's this game?" And then he just like I screen share, and we started playing it together, and then we were just so both hooked that we played like all 30 hours of it. So that's why it took a lot longer too. Is like we were discussing like, okay, strategies here, and like in the second
Yeah.
game, you're like building a deck, and we did a lot of like, ooh, let's build this fun deck, and so that took me a lot longer than I think most people, but even still, I loved every second of it. And playing it with a friend, I mean, playing any game with a friend, I feel like is just generally adds enjoyment to it. But
Yeah,
also
typically.
the fact that it felt like, yeah, once again, like we were uncovering something we shouldn't, and sharing that with him, and like bouncing ideas of like, man, what is going on here? Really added to the experience for me. So yeah, Inscription. I should say as well, like my 1, 2, and 3 are kind of in a tier in their own. I'm really happy with my order of them. Like I'd keep them
Yeah.
at this order, but Inscription is like solidly in like the top tier for me. And I think yeah, one of my favorite games of all time. I love how creative this game is. I love the card games. I love the story. I love how weird it is, and I love that
Yeah.
it's also made and like filmed in Vancouver, which is just like a fun fact that makes it feel like even more creepy in a way. That it's like,
Yeah, it's,
oh
it's
man, this is like
close
in my
to
backyard.
home. Somebody's gonna knock on your door and try and
Yeah,
figure out
exactly.
if you have the disc as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about Inscription. It's a great game. Yeah, I think if you
Absolute
get
10 out of
spoiled
10.
on it, it takes away a lot of the enjoyment. So
Yeah.
try to go
Go
in
in
blind. I
blind.
mean, if you're listening to this point, you haven't gone in
Sorry.
blind, but I think we gave you a fair warning in last episode.
Yeah,
So
true.
yeah,
And early,
Inscription
and
is
off,
amazing.
at the top, like yeah.
Mhm.
If you skipped past Inscription talk, you did maybe a good job. If you were if you were not somebody who's played it yet, because you should definitely go play it and
Yeah.
definitely go in as blind as possible.
Definitely. Dante, we are on to number 2.
Man, so I yesterday switched to this one to number 2 from number
Ooh.
1.
Okay.
After just waxing poetic about another game and realizing it needed to be number 1. I think you
Yeah.
can kind of guess I'm spoiling. But my number 2 is Halo Infinite.
All right.
I love Halo Infinite, man. Like obviously it's number 2, so like clearly.
Yeah.
Halo Infinite is finally 343 getting it right. Like I think 4 and 5 were general missteps, especially with their story modes, but like even the multiplayer just did not quite feel like Halo to me. At like this just feels like maybe even like Reach era Halo, which I think is some of the best multiplayer's ever been. Like I can talk about these like this game in like 2 parts because they kind of released it in 2 parts, but like as a whole, and especially as a whole that is going to be developed on further. Like we're getting Forge down the road, we're getting co-op in the campaign down the road, but like just with single player campaign and the multiplayer that they have in there that right now, like it's the best Halo's felt in decades. Like I am blown away at what they were able to do. So from a multiplayer perspective, it's just great. It's just great. All of the maps are fantastic. There's like maybe one that's like okay, but like it's up against some of the best like multiplayer maps Halo I think has had in a long time.
Mhm.
All the game types are super, super fun. Like big team battles, as fun as it always has been, like just hectic and chaos. And there's a bunch of different modes that make it feel like very different and evolving from match to match. The competitive is amazing. They've made mouse and keyboard feel at home with Halo, which is something that I was like super nervous coming into this one. I was like, all right, I'm playing this on PC. I have my controller right in front of me. I'll use a controller if I need to, but like I've been playing mouse and keyboard and it's been awesome. The the experience I've had getting some friends together and like sitting down and just like shredding through some multiplayer has been the most fun I've had with a multiplayer game this year. Like, and it's been a long time since I've had a competitive shooter that I want to return to on a regular basis that is like stolen time away from other games. That hasn't happened to me in a really long time. Like probably not since Black Ops 2 or something like that. It's been a long time, like Xbox 360 era. Have I spent as much time with a multiplayer first person shooter as I have with Halo Infinite, and that's just the multiplayer side. Like there was some battle pass issues and stuff like that. Like the progression in the game was a little rough, but they fixed it. They fixed it while it was still technically in beta as well, so I don't even think that necessarily counts towards the final release of the game. But like live games are so nebulous these days that like what is even considered a launch game at this point. Or what is it at launch is maybe or what it is at launch is maybe something that like it should be held accountable for. But like still when they have finally released the campaign, the multiplayer was pretty much ironed out and they're continuing to add to it. They've added lots of fun game modes and they do seasonal events in this that are like absolutely a blast. So they give you a reason to consistently come back. Like if I missed like the previous one, which game type was called Fiesta, and they like randomize all the weapons. So you can end up with like a rocket launcher and a sword, or you can end up with a pistol and a plasma pistol. And it's just like really hectic and chaotic and super fun. But then on top of it, they might have made the best Halo campaign that's ever existed. Like, I adored being in that world. I spoke about it a little bit earlier, like in the best level segment, where I pretty much put Zeta Halo as like an entire best level, and it was like Dylan was like, "Man, that's giving it a little too much."
Imagine
credit.
just putting like Skyrim,
exactly,
is the best level. Like,
exactly.
okay, man.
I would have fought for that too. But like it really does like have so much charm and allows you to do so much within that world. Like all of the utility items you have in the multiplayer you get in the campaign, but then they also like upgrade and become kind of different. Like your grappling hook ends up having a shorter cooldown, so you end up feeling like Spider-Man, like you're literally like zipping up mountains and stuff with the grappling hook. Or it makes it so when you grapple hook somebody, it becomes electric, so you like grapple a grunt, you fly towards him and he's stunned, and then you butt him with the back of your rifle. Like there's just so many interesting moments that can come of it. And the second it allows you to start being creative is when you realize, holy crap, they've really done something with Halo. Halo, I don't think has ever had real creativity. It was just like fun to play because like they've always been just generally fun shooting games. You know what I mean? Like cool setting, fun guns, Master Chief's fun and stoic. You know what I mean? Like it was just a fun world to be in. But now it actually like they give you so many little things to do that are just like an absolute blast just to run around and shoot shit. And then they take breaks from capturing these towers or going around and killing like high profile VIP targets, and all those high profile VIP targets drop upgraded versions of weapons. So like in Halo Infinite, they took away the fact that the rocket launcher could track at all. Like it couldn't lock on. It can't lock on anymore to like vehicles. You end up with a rocket launcher that can lock onto anything. You end up with a sword that has a quicker attack speed, like a BR that's stronger at mid range than long range. So you get like these alternate versions of weapons you become really comfortable with, and it just like changes the entire way you think about it. And then you get these forward operating bases where you can summon anything. Like, so it's like, all right, I want to go and tackle this environment, but I want a Scorpion tank, and I want a plasma rifle and a sniper rifle, and then you get to go in with exactly what you had intended and kind of get to experiment with different loadouts in a way that, once again,
That's awesome.
Halo, you kind of just ran forward and like whatever weapon was available is the weapon that you worked with. And so the outside world of Zeta Halo is just such a great representation of everything you wanted that first level of Halo 1 to be realized in a modern age. And then you go into these discrete story levels and it feels like old Halo. And those little like corridor shooting moments are some of the best they've ever been as well. Boss fights are just frustrating. I played the whole game on Legendary solo, so it was like pretty brutal, but like also made me appreciate the design a lot more. Like the AI is excellent. Like people will strafe behind you. Those the jackal snipers are hellish like they've always been. Like those are priority number one. You walk into an area and you got to make sure you take those guys out that are off in the distance, or else you're just going to get one shot and like have to start over. But like they also know how difficult of a game they've created by giving you this open map and making it so enemies can one-shot you. But it's never frustrating because the checkpointing is flawless. It's like some of the best checkpointing I've ever experienced in a game. Like you die and then they cut you back like 15 seconds. And then if you die like repeatedly in those 15 seconds, like say it was like a moment you were just about to get shot when it checkpointed, it'll bump you back. If you die like 3 times in a row, like within a second, it'll bump you back to the checkpoint before that. Nice. So it's just done really, really smartly. All of the quality of life stuff they've added is amazing. I think the storytelling is actually solid. I think 4 and 5 storytelling is pretty bad. And this does a really good job of telling the Cortana story in retrospect. Like it kind of it leaves you feeling like you're coming into a middle of a story, and then you learn more about it as you go on. And it makes you feel for the characters that have been around for a long time. Like I was like kind of over what they were doing with Cortana's story, and it actually made me care about those characters again. Master Chief is broken down in a way and really just exhausted and tired, and you get to experience the fact that like he's always seemed like this kind of soulless, empty character, and he actually has like clear PTSD, and he's been through a lot, and he just wants the shit to be over. I don't know, man. Like they really, really nailed it. Like in a way that I didn't think anyone could with Halo ever again. Like I didn't care after Reach pretty much about the story.
Yeah.
And I care again. Like,
nice.
Yeah. Halo Infinite is the best Halo's been in forever. And I can't believe I have and people are playing it and excited about the multiplayer. Yeah. There's like tons of I don't know. There's plenty of people to play Halo with. The fact that the multiplayer is free is crazy. It's one of the best multiplayer shooters out right now, if not the best, and it's totally free. Like, it doesn't feel greedy either. Like you can play that game for free and not feel like you're missing out at all.
Crossplay too is nice.
Crossplay on Xbox and PC. So, and there's different lobbies for there's crossplay lobbies, there's controller only lobbies, there's controller only PC lobbies, there's keyboard only PC lobbies. Yeah, they went really, really far to make sure like whatever experience you're looking to get out of Halo you can get, which I think is sick. Amazing. Super cool. Yeah, it's a great game.
I'm excited to play more multiplayer with you, and
yeah,
I'll get to the campaign. I don't know if I'll wait till co-op at this point, and maybe I'll jump in sooner.
It's super, super good. I'm really excited to see what this game feels like in co-op, because like I can't imagine the amount of chaos you can get into. Like that you can get into so much alone. Like I just am picturing 2 people just creating insane amounts of explosions everywhere, and it just being this insane thing. But it seems like they've actually already set it up to be multiplayer, 4-player multiplayer as well, because like when you go to the forward operating bases and you're like setting up your build, you walk up to a station and there's 4 of them. You only need 1. So I think they're cool. Pretty close.
Nice. Yeah, I played like for the original trilogy, played Legendary through with friends co-op, and that was always really fun, and like throwing the skulls in there to change up your experience. Like just I mean, I love Halo, and I've been
Me too,
gone
yeah.
for a while, but it is fun to say that Halo's back, and
Halo's back.
yeah, it's great.
Like
It's a great
for
feeling.
real. Yeah, absolutely. Like I just never saw that coming, but I'm so happy it is.
Nice. All right, my number 2. I don't know. I feel like this might be a surprise, but maybe not. But it is going to be Outer Wilds: Echoes of the Eye DLC for a
DLC.
game. Yeah, I to me there was no question of like, oh, is this eligible or not? I think if it was maybe like 9th or 10th on my list, I would have said, okay, maybe not. It's DLC, but I mean, I debated putting this at 1 a lot this year. I love Outer Wilds. When it came out in 2019, it was my game of the year then, and now it's like, you know, almost the DLC is like tied for number 1 this year. Like that's just a sign that this is now like one of my
Outer Wilds
very
is a
favorite
perfect
games
video
of
game.
all time.
Yeah, it's
have you finished the
incredible.
DLC?
So I haven't finished the DLC, and I
Okay.
also like
Where are you at?
it.
Because
It
I'm going to talk
definitely could have.
spoilers. So where are you
Okay.
at right now?
Yeah, no worries. I have so I've been to the Dark World, right?
Okay.
Whatever that Dark World is considered. Man, it's hard to kind of gauge like where I'm at
Yeah,
all.
it's definitely
Considering the way
non-linear,
that game
so,
works is
yeah.
like so like whatever you figure out first is such a like a carrot that you can follow for quite a while.
Mhm.
I've brought lanterns. Dude, I don't know. How do you
Okay, that's fine.
explain? How do you explain? Like, I have that like that machine that like
Yeah.
will is
That
it
you like close and open kind of.
yeah. I've used that. I've gone into the Dark World and I've gotten caught a few times in there.
Okay.
I don't know that I've come
Are
to
you
any
okay with me
drastic.
spoiling some stuff? Because I really want to talk about some stuff.
Yes.
I feel like if you haven't,
Yes
like,
and no, but
I feel
yes.
like if you haven't done it yet, like, I don't know.
I don't
Are
know
you
if
really...
I've done it. I don't know if I've done it. That's the thing. Like, that's the hard part about this game. And also, it's really frustrating that this game came out, or I started playing it around a bunch of other games coming out. And I'm scared to go back to it. I don't know what I've done anymore. Yeah, so it seems like one that you really got to eat up in one go, or else like some of the tools that you have learned or the pieces you have learned, or
I think especially for traversal in the Dark World, like it really you'll forget where to go because it's very dark. So you'll forget where to go if you if you haven't been playing it consistently. But so I might have to spoil a couple things because I think for me this is the game. Like I took a ton of notes for this one because I really wanted to talk about why I love this so much. And I think everyone says about this game that Outer Wilds is the game that I really want to experience for the first time again because it's not like uncovering the mysteries, understanding it all, and seeing the different areas. Like you can only experience that stuff once, and it's miraculous that with this DLC they were able to capture that again. Like this DLC is as long as the base game was for me. And I mentioned in our last episode how I kind of got stuck at the very beginning of this, like how to get it started.
Same. But then after that, I had to look it up actually.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I'm worried about that. Like that sucks. But then everything after that is able to figure out on my own, and that felt amazing. I love so much about this. The music is fantastic. The way it like utilizes reuse of the themes and like remixes them in a different way. There's kind of these scary themes. There's these emotional like swelling moments that really come together. I think for me, like when you first enter the stranger, like when you first are going forward and like your screen is slowly becoming black and then you're moving in nothingness for a bit and then the spaceship like opens up, every time like the way the music hits that moment too, like every time, even though I've done it 100 times, like it's still like I still kind of get the heebie-jeebies. It just feels like you're losing all control for a second. It's the first time it happens too is like an unreal moment, and like it somehow captures that moment every time you do it, even though you have to do it so many times. I like that. Obviously, you're always starting from the same place on Timberhearth, I think is the name of the planet.
Yeah, I was about to say, I almost forgot too.
Yeah, but the way that there's like various shortcuts so that like once you're on the stranger, you can kind of not have to go through the exact same sequence multiple times. There's different shortcuts too for like depending on where you're trying to go on there. I love the slide reels. So instead of like you reading dialogue, you are going through these slideshows. I think that was an amazing way to convey information, and the fact that they can have it so like they can burn out a couple of slides so that like certain information's hidden, but then you have like the context of before and after and trying to figure out what happened in between. I don't know if you feel like you've gotten to this point, but there's eventually you kind of realize just going through the overworld that like your main goal here is like I need to get inside that vault, and I think
Yes.
that is such a gripping mystery the
Yeah.
whole time. From like you see it very early on, but then I think it kind of takes another couple hours before you realize that like okay, that's like the final puzzle piece. So like I'm trying to figure out what is going on in there, and I love that mystery like the whole time trying to figure that out. And like you getting more and more clues for it, having some ideas, but not really knowing exactly what's going on there is
Yeah.
great. Maybe I don't think I need to reveal what's in there. I think I can hold
Please
back on.
don't do
Yeah,
that. That is like the
I can
whole
hold back on
crux,
that.
right?
Yeah,
I think I'm remembering. So there are these like pillars that have like multiple dials on them, almost like a safe. And
yeah.
there's a few of them.
There's three of them. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think those are what I'm working on right now.
yeah. And so I'll say without spoilers, like the way you like uncover how to get how to like what those three codes are essentially is amazing. It's so like I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it subverts your expectations in a few ways.
Cool.
Really love those solutions. I love the connection between the overworld and the underworld in terms of like it goes both ways. Like sometimes you have to go like over top in the or I guess in the overworld and change something and then go down underneath, or they might have to
Oh.
go underneath, change something, and then come back up top, which I think is really cool as well. There's one puzzle where you kind of have to do that. That took me a long time to figure out, but when I finally did, I was like, "Oh my god, what an amazing solution that is!"
That's a good little Easter egg alone.
Yeah,
Like, not that doesn't even feel like a spoiler. That just feels like
right.
my mind just
Because
opened. I was
both
like, oh my
areas are
god, there's like a
pretty
dozen
big,
things I can
so
think of doing now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the horror really works in this.
Yeah,
Like
it's
the
good. It's
screeches,
way
and then yeah,
scarier
when you
than
get grabbed,
anything
how
else.
dark it is. Oh my god, they do it so well. There's even like in the dark world. I don't know if you've encountered one of these yet, but there's like these hands that if you shine your light at it, they like grab you and pull you forward
Hmm.
as like a little,
Yep.
kind of like a little fast travel thing. And those like the first time you encounter those, it's fucking terrifying. And then they become such an interesting way that they use that for traversal. One thing I love as
Yeah, the
well.
like the like things that you are you talking about the things that you look through and you zoom in and then they teleport you to the other sides and stuff? That's also a
Yeah,
really,
like the
really
thing
cool
that's like it
mechanic.
like looks like a hand and it
Yeah.
like grabs you and like pulls you in and then you like
Yeah.
kind of get zoomed away.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
cool effect. Like the visual effects throughout this are always amazing. They were amazing in the original Outer Wilds. They
Mm-hmm.
continue to be
Yeah.
incredible in this. Like, if I had beaten this and wasn't so firm on the fact that like, man, I can barely get Endwalker on my list,
Yeah.
it probably would have been in there as well.
I think I
And
think
high.
I hope so. I hope that it would have because it's something special. I have a lot more notes. Let's keep going here. This is
Let's
the
go.
one.
Let's go.
This is
Go
like
ahead.
the one game that I just wanted to talk about a lot
Gosh.
because I haven't talked about it on the podcast at all. Okay, so the raft. I love the raft. I love that instead of like, I think some people struggled to use the spaceship in the base game because it is hard to control at first. Eventually,
Mhm.
it becomes like second nature, but
Yeah.
I think it takes a bit to understand. I like that for the raft. Instead of like adding new buttons or anything, they just made it based on like this light thing where you shine your
Mhm.
lantern at something. It's really inventive. It's really simple, but it's just such a great solution that I feel like I've never seen or like other games have done things like that, but I think that was such a brilliant little thing. And then even in
It's a novel
general,
way to do it for sure.
yeah, I love that you really aren't using your spaceship at all in this DLC. Like for the whole like
Mm-mm.
whatever for me was like around 10 hours I think. Like you're not using your spaceship at all just to get to the stranger and then like I guess you could look around the stranger with it. And then even once you're in there, you're still using your jetpack, but then once you're in the dark world, your jetpack's gone and I like that they take away that stuff, but then they give you a couple new tools but not too much. Like it just the game feels so different from the base game because of that, because like the traversal is such a big part of the main game and it's so
Yeah.
different in the DLC, so that's great. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about here? I won't spoil these things, so I'll hold back on those. I'll say that the story is very touching and moving. The ending to it is like it just like there's this music that plays when you're uncovering this final sequence, and I was like so emotional. Like I had tears in my eyes, honestly, when it finally finished. It's just the way it
It sounds
connects
like
with the base game and the base game of the main story, and then like connects
cool.
what these people had to go through and what they sacrificed to get where they like they sacrificed everything to follow the eye, and then the eye like betrays them and they like realize they did it all for nothing. It's like so sad. Like I was
Yeah.
just It
They
just
do.
makes me like, yeah,
They do such a good job of that exact same thing in the original, whereas
yeah.
it's like by the end, the music starts to really come together and it becomes very emotional as well. Like I'm excited to see how they do that
Yeah.
again, and then also still attach it to the base game. That's like
Mm-hmm.
really exciting.
Yeah, and then I love the inclusion of the lantern in both the overworld and the underworld, and I like that too. You're like there's a bunch of new mechanics with the light and how you move doors and things like that
Mm-hmm.
with light, and I like that that's like another creative way to use the scout launcher without changing anything. It's just that the scout launcher has a light on it, so you can use that to do certain things, and that's cool. That might be a spoiler, sorry, but I gotta
No,
spoil
like I
some
just
things.
never even thought to use the scout launcher at all. Like this is that a game that I hadn't touched in almost 2
Yeah,
years, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's all these tools that I have that like from the base game that are probably super
it's
useful as
so
well.
mechanically simple, and they even pull mechanical complexity away for this DLC, and it makes the game like even richer. It's just how
Man.
creative they are designers. Here's the last thing I'll share is one little anecdote. So, a big recurring theme. I mean, actually, if anyone's listened to part 1 of the podcast so far, I use like a slide reel as the thumbnail, and in this slide reel, it shows like these kind of houses on the river, and then it shows like this planet up in the sky, and it's this beautiful like turquoise, green, and blue planet with this beautiful ring around it. And this whole time, I've been like really into astronomy the last year, and so like seeing this planet, I'm just like, oh, I love this planet. I want to know everything about this planet. I can't wait to go to this planet. Like I'm having all these thoughts about this planet, and you're seeing so much imagery of it, but it's like, it's not existent in this solar system. It's like this is from their solar system. And there was a point where I was in the dark world, and like I hadn't been in there for very long, and I'm just walking around, and I'm like pretty scared because I can't even see the ground in front of me. I don't know what's going on. There's like weird screeches in the background. I'm terrified, and I just at one point for no reason, like the game doesn't tell you to do this or something, I just look up and I see the planet, and it's floating
Oh
right above me,
man.
and I involuntarily gasp, like I just like and I've it scared me because like I've never
Yeah.
had that happen for a game where my body just did something, and like once again I'm in this scary place, and like I heard this sound and it was me making this sound. Like this game just took over me for this second, and I was just in awe, and I think for the rest of the loop I just stood there looking at it, and I was just like in awe. And that's like not a story beat, that's not something they programmed as some moment. There's no music cue for it. It's just the tiniest thing. I looked up and saw this thing that I've been looking for 6 or 7 hours, and
They tease it, right? They tease that planet throughout, like that. It becomes a mechanic at certain points, like that. Like you're supposed to be looking out for this planet to solve certain puzzles, right? So, like the fact that you finally see it in person, and you kind of have an understanding of what has happened already by the time you've seen it, that you're like, oh shit, like this is maybe non-existent anymore, or like you're traveling through time potentially, or
no
like
there.
it has weight when you finally realize it's there. That's so cool. That's so cool. This game is, I don't know, it is genius. It is genius. The fact that this is a game that was created as a student project initially as well, and what it has become is so impressive. I'm like, I can't wait to see what this team continues to do with these chops. Like they are more talented than most developers, and it's just a small group of
I think
people.
it's like 10, 12 people. It's like a very small team. Whenever I was in the dark world and I was like feeling overwhelmed or scared, I would just look up and see that planet again. I was like this like warmth and comfort. There's more I could say, but I don't think I was gonna maybe spoil like this ending thing that you're figuring out, but I won't, because I want you to experience it, and I don't think I need to. I think I've said enough. It's DLC. To me, it's so separate of an experience, and it's such a departure that it's pretty much a prequel, sequel, whatever you want to call it. That for me, it was like as soon as I finished it, I was like, okay, this is my game of the year, and then I eventually. It was 1 and 2 just danced back and forth. It was a tango. They traded all the time. I'm happy with it at number 2, but just once again, like game of the year 2019, pretty much game of the year this year. Outer Wilds is one of the greatest works of art ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is such a fantastic experience, and I know I've spoiled some stuff, but at least I didn't spoil some of like the big revelations.
No, not at all. Actually,
so. Please go play it. I think it's coming back to Game Pass, actually. It was there originally. It's coming back this month, along with Spelunky 2, which also wasn't even announced for Xbox, but it's like coming to Game Pass this month. So there you go.
Awesome.
Gotta talk about Spelunky, but
Outer Wilds is the original Outer Wilds is one of the best video game experiences ever made, and the fact that they were able to do it again is like just baffling and also incredible.
Yeah.
Like that's a group of geniuses for sure.
I love it very much. And with that, let's take our very last ad break here. I think it'll be our last ad break, and then we can get into our number one and make our collective list. So we'll be back in 1 second. 1 second is over. Dante, number one. I feel like I know what it is. I feel like people who listen to our part one probably know what it is, but what is it?
Yeah. Number one, game of the year 2021 for me is Returnal. Man, Returnal is just one of the coolest things I've ever played. It is also one of the hardest games I've ever played. I've been a big Housemarque fan since Super Stardust, right? Like that was a little like twin joystick shooter they made on the PlayStation 3. And from that point on, I was like, yeah, if they make games, I'll check them out for sure. And then they made another one with PS4 came out. I'm totally blanking on the name of it, but it was also very good. And then this, which is a total like just completely different full experience that I did not expect to see from such a studio that I was known for making these small arcadey games. They made a third person bullet hell with a very, very like alien Geiger-esque feeling to it. The setting is so unsettling. Like everything is these like futuristic but also looking very old architecture that's incredibly dark and alien. And then like it has the exact same like alien pods that you would expect, like the literal eggs from Alien. And all of the monster designs are like very what's the guy's name? My way of explaining it's bad, so I'm not even going to go out of my way to explain who I'm talking about.
Eldritch horror.
Eldritch, yeah, exactly.
Kind of
Lovecraftian. My way of explaining Lovecraft is not on the up and up. He's not a good person.
You got close enough that I was able to figure out what you're talking
cool.
about.
So. This Lovecraftian take on all of the enemies, and actually like it goes so far as to leave little Lovecraftian hints like throughout the house portions that I talked about as one of my favorite levels of the year. There are these pieces where you kind of walk through a level without any weapons or anything like that. It goes into first person and you're just navigating through your home. And there's this, there's like a squid stuffed animal. So it's like leaning into like the Cthulhu nature of things to come.
Yeah.
But like, I think where this game shot, like obviously the setting is so cool and like that was enough to pull me in. But the reason I stayed and I continued to bash my head up against this game all year, because it took me an entire year to beat it, is the mystery of what this story is doing and what the repercussions of Celine's previous actions before the game starts have been. Like you realize that like Celine, the main character, has gone through something incredibly traumatic heading into this game that creates so many questions throughout each level. You're finding like dozens of dead Celines everywhere, like, whoa, and their previous loops, right? Like, so you're seeing how she has died, and like there's such a little funny like thing where like before each boss fight you find a pistol, and it's because a previous Celine has made it to that point and died. Like, so it's just like this leftover artifact of previous runs, and they're not your runs necessarily, but they are still just like great little storytelling pieces that they add throughout. The music does a great job of making you feel like you're in complete misery the entire time, but also this like cool, droney, atmospheric, once again, like, just like it feels like a movie soundtrack, and it's done. It really does amp up the feeling of the world that you are in. But then on top of it, that game is just so fun to play. It is so fun. Like the maneuverability is incredible. Celine's crazy fast. She has this dash that has iframes, that has invincibility frames. So like you're dashing through waves of bullets. All of the bullets that the enemies are shooting out are these like neon like orbs that are like, and there's like hundreds of them on a screen at one time, and you're like maneuvering around those and dashing through them and jumping over them. She gains more powers very similar to a Metroid. I actually think if the team who's making a 3D Metroid right now has not played Returnal, they should, because I think they did a better job at making a Metroid style game in 3D than Metroid has ever been. Because they really do kind of constantly offer you new like large scale power ups that make you look at the game completely differently. It's like, oh wow, there are these entire zones I wasn't able to go in before, but now I can go in water. Now I can walk through lava. Like they're constantly adding moments like that make you rethink the levels that you've already once again bashed your head up against. Like you get a grappling hook that lets you like fly all over the map once again. And they all have like, seriously, I think when you're using the grappling hook, you get iframes. So like you start to learn to use the grappling hook on the little grappling areas to dodge attacks. And like there's attacks coming from everywhere constantly. It is really like a harrowing environment to be in. And you start off, once again, like I said, in Deathloop, moving through it really slow. And by the end of that game, you feel incredible. Like you can just fly through. This is a minor spoiler. I'm not going to explain how it happens, but the entire environment when you've kind of beaten the game changes, and there's a reason to continue to play. And the game gets much harder, much harder. That was actually, I beat the first half of the game when the game came out, and then the second half is taking me all year to finish. Crazy. Because it is just brutal. There's like RPG style leveling of all of your weapons. They unlock new abilities. So like one of my favorite weapons, and I think one of the easier weapons to use, is called a Hollow Seeker. It literally tracks enemies. It's like an assault rifle that just all the bullets track. And then you level it up to its, and then every once in a while you'll drop that same gun. But as you're shooting, a portal will show up behind you and it'll shoot independently. It's like a little minion that will just shoot for you. And like every single one of the like 12 or so weapons has like a dozen different variants as well. So like your rocket launcher can have a bunch of mini rockets, or it can have one large rocket. Like it can be auto fire. It can be like as fast as you can click the trigger. It does a really great job of utilizing the new features of the PlayStation 5 controller. So like you half click and you half aim in, and you get an ADS, essentially like an aim down sights. But if you pull it all the way down, you like click past a threshold. You feel that like that tension, and you pull through it, and then you're charging your super up. So like there's lots of little things like that as well. The rumble and the effects coming out of the controller are really great ways to actually like add different like ways to like know what's going on in your surroundings. So like you may not notice that there's bullets coming at you, but like you can feel it with the controller really, really like starkly where they're even coming from, which is cool. Like the way that controller works is pretty neat. It essentially is like if the HD Rumble and the Switch was actually good. So it just like it consumed me in a way that I don't think many games did this year. Like it was all I thought about for a while, and the only times I put it down was out of frustration. And that's because the runs are very long.
Right.
Yeah, that is the only thing that I can say is a problem with that game, and I didn't even care. It just was like really hard to go to bed some nights when I'm like in the last biome and I just want to get to the final boss and I die and I realize it's been 3.5 hours.
Oh man,
and I'm just long. Like, yeah. I'm like, just one more, and then I go and I look at the clock and I'm like, there can't be one more. So that's pretty rough. But like since its launch, they've added an ability to suspend the game. Initially, they didn't. I get why they didn't, but it was just it's too brutal. It felt impactful. It felt like when you are here, you're spending time as Celine and you're dealing with her struggles. And if one of those is actually like managing your own personal time. It is by the end, it is a very impactful story. It handles mental health incredibly well, which I don't think a lot of games or media in general do a good job of. It makes you hurt for Celine. Like in a way that I haven't cared about a lot of characters in the way that I did about her. And like, I think Returnal's going forward is going to be one of those games that is going to set a bar for a lot of like third-person action games for me. Like
Nice.
the way that game moves is just, it has such a flow to it that like when you're in it, you are in it. You feel like you are one with the controller or something like that. Like it just does such a good job of making you feel incredible, like when you're doing really good. But when you're doing bad, it's just like you also don't feel like the game's being too much of a dick. It just feels like you're just not good enough. So like it pushes you to be better at it constantly. It like whenever you need a break from the craziness, it adds really, really strong story beats that really lean into the horror of that game. So yeah, it balances between being a just like super fun action game and also being something that makes you feel every once in a while. Like it definitely gets into your tear ducts every once in a while, and just like it's like, man, you're going to feel the pain that Celine is feeling, and understand what she is really going through and the hell that she's been going through.
I can't wait to play this game.
It is. I think it is one of the few games that I would like. I don't have much of anything bad to say about it. Like outside of it being too hard, like, but like I like a challenge when it comes to video games. If anything, that's almost like a benefit. Like I probably would have stopped playing it earlier in the year, but instead it gave me a reason to keep coming back to it. It's just, if you have a PlayStation 5, it should be the first thing that you play. Like as far as I'm concerned, outside of maybe like Astro's Playroom to get a feel for the controller, right? Like as far as a fully fledged game, and like people looking at this as like, man, a roguelike for full price, which is like what games are $70 now. It's totally worth the cost of entry. Like I'd buy this game like 3 or 4 times over again at this point. Like I want to just give Housemarque money for making something so incredible. It's so damn good, and I can't wait to see now what Housemarque can do, because I'm pretty sure they're now fully owned by Sony, and they're gonna have plenty of money going forward to like really.
Yeah, I think they'll kind of have like a. I think they'll have like a endless budget for whatever they want to make. Next, cool.
They have definitely proven themselves. Time and time again with their previous games, but really now is like somebody who can make a AAA roguelike, which is like not something that there's many of. Like I wouldn't necessarily consider Deathloop to be one, right?
No, definitely not. I guess Praise Mooncrush DLC, right? But that's definitely not. I mean, it was DLC for a game, and it doesn't have the runtime that would justify that kind of thing. But
like as far as roguelikes go, this now is up there with Hades for me. Is one of my favorites I've ever played. Definitely get to that, Dylan. That is worth your time. I will. Just something special and completely original, and I can't wait to see if they continue to do more with Returnal or to see what they do next.
Yeah, we had it as in our top 5 for best sound, or best music, I should say, best visuals, and best character. Let's get into my number 1, which was present in all 4 of our categories,
right?
And is, I think, no surprise to anyone, you or any of our listeners, anyone ever. It's going to be Deathloop.
Let's go.
And it's funny. Like last year, I was like, "Oh yeah, Spelunky!" Like before the year even started, like Spelunky 2 is going to be my game of the year, and it was. This year was like Deathloop's going to be my game of the year, and it was. And both of them came out on the same day, like September 14th. So pretty funny stuff there. But I mean, Deathloop, like we talked about it already, and I also did a 3-hour-long podcast with Kirkland. So
oh my god,
I'm not going to say too much more. I'll just say that I think the structure is great because it takes what Arcane's best at and like repurposes it in a way that makes all of their systems like work that much better. The combat and the style are fantastic. I think maybe one thing we haven't talked about that was really big for me was the community aspect of it. After the game came out, I joined the Discord, before the game came out, I joined the Discord, and there was like a spoiler chat and a spoiler free. So before I'd beaten the game, I was hanging out one of the channels, and then when I was done, I was trying to figure everything out. And one of my favorite things was solving the spy bunker kind of quest line, which is not necessary at all to beat the game, but there's essentially like these in each map there's a hidden spy bunker, and they're like pretty, like you get one clue somewhere, and then piecing all the clues together to figure it all out is pretty difficult. And that stuff, like even if you have quest markers, it won't help you at all. Like it's really like one of them you have to like listen to a radio signal at a certain point, and that gives you the clue for the next one. And in the Discord server, I was talking to someone, and when like we ended up going in a personal chat, and just like we just were figuring it out for like a couple days. Like, here's what I know, here's what you know. Like, let's piece it together, and figuring that out was pretty fun. And there was other stuff like that too, just figuring out some of the more hidden secrets. That was really fun from a community perspective. But I'm
realizing I've missed a lot of that. Like I probably have gigantic gaps. Like I'm realizing there was that box that in that like fortune teller room that has a passcode. I've never opened that. I'm still realizing I've never opened that. Like, so
yeah, that was a fun thing where I was like writing down the answers to them, and it took me like several loops to figure out how to do it, because it was like trial and error and stuff. And I don't think it was the best reward, to be honest, but it's part of like an achievement. So if you have to do it for some other stuff, if you are into that kind of thing. But yeah, I love the game. I think the invasions were a great addition from other Arcane games. I mean, maybe it also is a negative in a way because CPU Julian is awful, like not a good fight whatsoever. But then you're also going to get some of the best fights you'll ever have in an Arcane game, because you can play against players who have unique sets and play styles. I'm really excited for Redfall next year.
Beware Juliana's machete. She will come up and she will one-shot you.
Yeah. I'm super excited for Redfall next year, which has co-op. So Dante, we should play that together.
Word.
You know what Redfall is, right?
No, what's Redfall?
Oh, Redfall is so Arcane's other studio is releasing Redfall. They said next summer. We'll see. I mean, everything's getting delayed, but it looks like a more Left 4 Dead-y style game.
Yeah. I do remember this.
Only cinematic trailers, so we don't know a lot of it yet. But I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I'm totally in. Wait, so is this Austin or Leon? Which one did Deathloop?
I think it was Leon, and then Austin is working on Redfall. Yeah.
So they confused me this time around, because the lead of Leon, or the lead in Austin, went to Leon to do Deathloop, or the opposite this time.
Whoever, I think it was the guy who was running Leon has left the company, and then I don't know if someone from Austin came over there, but they have like a new head with Dingo is his name, and he's great. Every interview with him, he's such a fun guy.
Yeah.
And I watched some streams with like the level designer as well, Dana, and it was really cool to hear her like just explain little details about the maps. But yeah, I'm really excited for
she kicked ass.
Yeah.
Redfall. All right, that has to be on my list of things to look forward to then, because like I totally forgot about it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I'll say for Deathloop, even though it's my game of the year. I've just talked about it so much that I don't think there's too much more that I need to say. And yeah, Outer Wilds was more like the game I wanted to talk about passionately. Right. But let's get right into our collective list. We're going to make a top 10 together. And I think the obvious things here are like Deathloop, Inscription, Metroid were on both of our lists. So like those are going to go on there, right? I'm not going to put these ordered yet, but I'm just going to put like the games down here that are going to be on our list. I'll put them down here for now. And then I want to ask you about Outer Wild. Well, actually, let me quickly go back to our lists for the audio listeners.
I know what our collective top five is at the very least already in my head. Like I can.
Let's hold off on that for a second. So just for the audio listeners who don't have the video, Dante's list was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This is from 10 going down to 1. Guilty Gear Strive, Metroid Dread, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Inscription, Monster Hunter Rise, Final Fantasy 14, Endwalker, Deathloop, Halo Infinite, and Returnal. And my list was from 10 down, Resident Evil Village, Metroid Dread, Before Your Eyes, Wildermyth, Unpacking, Loop Hero, Hitman 3, Inscription, Outer Wilds, Echoes of the Eye, and then Deathloop. So you think you have a pretty solid top 5 here. What is that?
In no particular order. Well, actually, I can even do it in order if you want.
Sure. What do you think?
Deathloop, Inscription.
Deathloop makes sense. Yeah.
Deathloop, Inscription, Outer Wilds, Metroid Dread.
Deathloop, Inscription. I can't spell.
Well, it's not spelled right anyway.
What was number 3?
What was number 3? Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds at number 3. Okay. You're thinking, and then Returnal was 4, you said?
I think I feel stronger about Inscription
I guess you've played Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds. I've played a lot of Outer Wilds too. Like I probably have played as much time as you, but you beat it, and I must have stumbled horribly for a while.
Yeah.
And I think Outer Wilds deserves it because, like I said, if I had beaten it and wasn't like pigeonholing myself about it being DLC, it would have been on my top 10 as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And then Returnal at 4, Metroid Dread at 5. Is that what you said?
yeah, but like, okay. Oh no, so I didn't say Returnal at all.
Oh, okay.
Even though at that point I want to start working some stuff up.
I mean,
like,
Returnal, you're so passionate about it, and like,
yeah,
I'm sold. Like, I really want to play this game, so I think it's like
I think
it's
it
gotta
can
be
be
in the top
4.
5.
It's definitely it's above Metroid Dread for sure for me.
Yeah.
So happily we'll put Returnal.
But
there.
what was the other one you mentioned then? For
Yeah. Scroll up. Let me see our lists again. I don't know what I said. Man, the listeners will be like, "You idiot! You just said it like 5 seconds ago." And yeah, my brain went to absolute.
I'll make a couple other suggestions then. I think, I mean, this game was in neither of our top 10s, but we played Back 4 Blood together, and we both really like it. I think that at like 10 would be good.
Yeah, that's a good one because we did play it together. We both really enjoyed it, but it didn't necessarily make our top 10 up for either of us.
And then we talked about the issues we have with this one, but Sable, we had issues with the frame rate, which is a big issue, but I think we both loved the game, or I loved it at least. And
yeah, I need to play more of it. I've only played an hour.
So much of it, and we put it in 2 of our categories. So do you want to put that at number 9? Do you want to see that in the top 10?
Do you think that's maybe stuffing out some things that are in our top 10s as a whole?
It could be. So we can come back to it.
Put it as a maybe.
Okay.
Although I do think I will really enjoy Sable once I really sink my teeth in, but I really can only talk about the art style and the music at this point.
And then looking, I guess we both played Resident Evil. It was close to your list. Is that like a number 9, 8 material?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would put it over Back 4 Blood for sure as well.
Yeah.
Even though I had a blast with Back 4 Blood, I think Resident Evil is a more full experience. Like Back 4 Blood was good for one run for me, and I was pretty much done.
And then I think Halo makes sense because I love Halo.
I was about to say
Halo multiplayer, but it's really fun and it's your number 2. So I think that's maybe. I think do you want to? I'd put that above Metroid if you want.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's put Metroid at 6 and let's put Halo at 5.
All right, sounds good.
All right, 7 and 8.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's other games like. I don't know if I want to go through this. I have all of our previous discussions up here. I'm just quickly scrolling through it, but
let's just look at our top 10s now. Right? Like these are ones that we fought for.
Yeah, what do I want to
strongly.
See? I would like I guess I'm not passionate about like any of mine having to be on there. I mean, Hitman 3 I guess is a top 5er for me, but I don't need to see it on there. Going back up to your list, like Final Fantasy, I'd be happy to put that on the list. If you want to see it on there.
See, that's like the ones that are just mine and mine alone and stuff that I don't think you'll ever touch doesn't really work on a collective list. Like, more like Hitman, I think would work better because I will play that. Like, I have strong interest in that.
What about Guilty Gear? Because I really like. I haven't played it, but I really like it. I've loved watching the game. I think it's very unique. And I'd be down to put that on there.
I love Guilty Gear and would happy to be like, man, a fighting game getting in this, like I think is like, I would put it below Village.
Okay.
Just because I'm starting to think about like a collective list. You know what I mean? Like once again, this is one that I only play, but like you see the appeal in, and then I think for 7, I would not be mad at seeing Hitman there.
Yeah.
Because I am very, very interested in playing some Hitman. I love the first 2, so like I'm sure I will love this one as well. Especially if you make it sound like it's the best it's been. So
yeah, I think 2 of the levels in there are like in like the top 5 for me in all of Hitman levels.
Yeah.
And then like it's the best story in the trilogy if you care about that, which I didn't, but now I do.
Now you do. Yeah, it made you retroactively love it.
Yeah, and just Mendoza alone as a level is like. That's one of the best video game levels ever. So
I can't wait. I can't wait.
So that's
is this it?
That looks like a pretty good list to me. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
I think it's easier because we played a lot of the same games this year, whereas last year it was like we had only played a handful of games in common. So I think it's easier when we have games in common. Do you want any changes? Anything you want to see on there? Anything? I'm feeling pretty good about that. I
No,
really like
I
this
think
list.
this is solid. Like, I can't believe we just like went boom, 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 and it just like worked out. Like, I
Yeah,
don't even
well,
think
we've
I'd
spent
move anything up or
6
down.
hours talking about games here, so I
Yeah,
feel
maybe
like
we got it out of the
we know
way.
we have all the arguments. We just like gotta
Yeah,
think about them.
yeah, we don't gotta fight about this at all.
Yeah,
No, this is great.
cool. Um, let's read it off one more time for the fans and the listeners. So number 10, Back for Blood. Number 8, Guilty Gear Strive. Wait, did I say nine? I said that correctly. Yeah, number 8, Resident Evil Village, which is Resident Evil 8, so that's kind of fun.
Hey, there you
Number
go.
7, Hitman 3. Number
We got to
6,
move that up to
Metroid
3
Dread.
now.
What's that? Sorry.
We got to move Hitman 3 to 3.
Yeah, obviously. And then every game that's the first one in its series can be
It has to be
tied
number
for
1.
three.
Absolutely.
Yeah, number 7, Hitman 3. Number 6, Metroid Dread. Number 5, Halo Infinite. Number 4, Returnal. Number 3, Outer Wilds, Echoes of the Eye. Number 2, Inscription. And number 1, Deathloop. I mean, my top 3 is also our collective top 3, so I can't complain in the slightest. Like, that's great.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, easy mode. No, literally, what a kick-ass year for video games. Like,
so good.
unexpectedly, there's so many games on this list that I just didn't expect to even crack a top 10 for me, let alone be like way up there. Inscription, a game I'd never even heard of.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
people have been saying too that like, oh, this is maybe a lesser year and off year. I'm like, you are so wrong. There is so many amazing games this year, new games, sequel games, like remasters. Like, there's so much great stuff this year, and there was like even games that you and I haven't played yet that could have been top 10 material. So, and I love everything. Like, I love everything on my list. Like everything, I feel like everything on my list would crush like most of my list from last year. Like, I think this is a super strong year. So
honestly, you can scroll up to our last year one more time and I'm definitely curious to see like how it stacks up. I'm
yeah, I have that on Google.
Oh no, worries, I got it right here.
Google
I got it right
Drive.
here.
Okay.
I'm curious.
I mean, Spelunky 2 is like nothing's beating Spelunky 2, or maybe Ghost of Tsushima as well, or some games would beat Ghost of Tsushima. But yeah, I think other than that, like I think most of these games on my list this year would actually beat like my 3 through 10 last year. And that's I don't think that's recency bias. I think I just loved the games this year. There's so many unique genres, great indie games, great AAA games, like so strong.
There's 3 games that would stuff out some other stuff, and that's Half-Life Alyx. That's literally game of the decade. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Hades are the only ones that I'm still like massively like feel really, really, really strong about. Like, man, this year definitely I think has done a better job of capturing me.
Yeah, I do have them here now if we want to look at them. But yeah, I mean, I think I think I would put comfortably most of the games on my list like above anything from 4 and below. So yeah, really good year is the moral of the story.
Right.
And next year, I mean, this year is already 2022 is shaping up to be just absolutely unreal as well. I'm very excited
about time management. Like, how am I supposed to do my day job and also like commit the amount of time to Elden Ring it deserves?
I know, it's like Elden Ring, Horizon, and then Triangle Strategy. Like, I think all come out one week after another, and I'm really excited about all of those. So I'm not going to have free time for that month there.
It's messed up. There's like 4 games within a week's period that I'm like, oh yeah, I need to play that. And it's all in February of all places. Yeah. Like, there was one more that was like a big deal.
I'm pretty excited for Midnight Suns. I mean, Pokemon for some people. I'm not too stoked for that new one. To be honest,
I hope that's awesome, but I'm definitely tepid. Oh, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins coming out.
There you go. Yeah,
that game looks weird. Yeah, no, there's a lot of crazy stuff coming out in Q1. It's like that what has become the end of year like thing where we would have like tons and tons and tons of games in like November. It's all like February and March now.
Yeah. So we'll see how many.
Starfield comes out next year potentially.
Oh man, like, I can't wait for that.
It's crazy. I'm spoiling content.
Yeah,
you're getting into this later this week.
We'll be back next year doing these lists again, but I hope to, and I will have you on sooner than that as well to talk about some individual games or I don't know, other topics. Like, I'll get you on more often in general. But yeah, as always, this has been a lot of fun, and Yeah, it was
Had a
fun to
blast.
actually play some games together this year, and I feel like later this week we'll go play some Halo. You know, like it's just we're gonna keep it going.
You literally
so.
give me a ring and say, "Let's play some Halo," and I'm down. I
Yeah.
have an itch to play that at all times right now.
Sounds good. Well, Dante, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope
Likewise,
everyone
Dylan.
liked this good, nearly 7 hours worth of Game of the Year discussions. Super fun.
Yeah,
Can't wait to do it
absolutely.
again next year. Love video games. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.
Bye.
See you later.